Hi and welcome to this week's Three Legs Four Wheels F1 podcast. It's Paul here with
Dan,
Chris,
Lee,
and a special guest later on.
Absolutely.
Yep, we have a chat this week with virtual statman Sean Kelly.
We do indeed.
But first, was that a race yesterday? Oh, well, day before yesterday because it's now the early hours of Tuesday morning. But was that a race on Sunday or was that a race?
it was a race punctuated by bits that weren't race.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that.
What was it? I think I had to wait until the podium interviews when Martin Brundle said it. Was it 5 safety cars and 2 red flags?
I think there was a stat from our guest who's coming up later, which he posted to Twitter, saying that 28 laps were led by the safety car.
Of a 71 lap race.
Of a 71 lap race. Apologies,
wow.
Sean, if I've got that wrong.
Hopefully he'll be listening to this. Where do you begin? I think we'll just have to do the team by team from the back, working forward, try and work out what order things go in.
Yeah, we'll try. It's the thing is the order was so jumbled up that normally you would start at the back and work forward, but drivers were finishing a lot higher than they should have done, and there are a lot of retirements as well. So let's start at the back and work forward.
We'll start at the back with Haas and a double retirement. Well, one DNS and one retirement.
Well, one DNS, yeah.
That was a little bit embarrassing.
It was embarrassing and bizarre as well to be pushing, not even pushing, just not tiptoeing around on your installation lap before you go to the grid. And I mean, I don't know if anybody else saw it, that shot in the Haas garage when the team were just like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, Roman!" It's like it was a collective. Oh, come on!
I think we can technically call that doing a Petrov.
Testing the curves to see how wet they were.
Yeah, as it turned out, very.
Now there was in fairness to Romain Grosjean, there was a river running across that last kink in the circuit there before that home straight.
But do you think at the time Haas were saying, "Oh, we've fired the wrong driver here"?
Possibly.
They weren't by the end of the race.
No.
Yeah, somebody turned around and said, "Did we put that press release out, or did that just go in the drafts folder?"
No, unfortunately, they put the press release out. I have it sat here on my laptop in front of me.
Yeah.
Thanks to Haas putting us on the mailing list. But then, with what happened later on after Gutierrez retired, well, there's no love lost between him and the team.
Yeah, he didn't appear to be very happy. Did he? Threw his gloves down in the garage, and we saw a little bit of an altercation with the. I think he's like a de facto team boss, Gunther Steiner.
Yeah, I thought he's officially team principal or.
Yeah, I think Gene Haas is team principal. I think
Gunther Steiner head of racing or
something like that. Technical director.
Yeah, but I think definitely, and this beats anything that Max Verstappen did, the move of the day was by that Haas mechanic to get in between that argument and the world feed camera. Within 2 seconds of it looking like there was going to be a punch thrown.
Yeah, it did. But very disappointing for Haas. Their closed season isn't appearing to be as good as they were in the early part of the year.
Yep, said it before, say it again. They've got it backwards.
They have.
They have regressed.
Yeah, but they overperformed, didn't they? Maybe when they came out. So it's.
But this week they got it Haas about face.
Oh, Jesus.
Ta-da!
Sorry, I was nearly pissing all over your joke then, wasn't I?
Yeah. We'll just move on. Renault. Jolyon Palmer retired at the first red flag.
Was it the first? Was it the second red flag?
It was one of the red flags.
He just didn't come back out. They pushed his car into the garage, and he just didn't turn up again.
He hit Kvyat, I think, just after Raikkonen had spun, and so the red flag went out. Then he came back to the garage, but car was damaged beyond repair.
But in TV land, it took us a while to see that,
to find out about that.
Yeah, he said it was still drivable, but then he just didn't reappear at the restart.
Yeah, that wheel looked quite buckled.
Yeah, it looked like it was a pretty big whack, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says a lot for the strength of the side pod on the Toro Rosso for it to take a hit like that.
Yeah.
And Kvyat to actually still be able to keep going round.
Yeah.
But he's got something to celebrate. He's got his drive for next season.
Well, I think the pressure's off now, Jolyon Palmer. So
it's a shame for him as well because he was looking tidy in the before qualifying and stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, qualified ahead of K-Mag,
Yeah.
so he's.
But like in FP3, like he was comfortably in the top 10, wasn't he? In FP3,
I'm not sure. I didn't catch the practice, but it was a good until that point, a strong performance from Jolyon Palmer and justifying the decision by Renault to hold on to him.
Yeah, I still stand by what we've said before about both those drivers. That if you'd have kept K-Mag on, you'd have got another year of K-Mag. There's a chance that there's a decent Formula One driver.
It's a roll of the dice with Palmer, isn't
I mean, he might not get any better at all, and in that case, I think you'll probably find this time next year he probably won't be celebrating with a nice little victory crash.
Yeah.
But
for his
he
new
started the
contract.
season slow. He's got better as it went on. There's the chance that he's going to carry on getting
Well,
better.
everyone seems to say that about Palmer, don't they? That he grows into the role and gets steadily faster the longer he gets. So this time next year, maybe he'll have already earned himself a new Formula One drive.
Possibly. Other side of the Renault garage, K-Mag, 14th. I don't know.
Really.
Non-event.
Anonymous,
Just a bit meh. Definitely more anonymous than the Saubers.
Yeah, which was a surprise for a change to be more anonymous than the Saubers, because at one point the Saubers were looking pretty hot, and then Marcus Ericsson went and binned his car. Yeah, I mean, when everybody pitted, Ericsson and Nasser stayed out.
But there's not really a great deal you can say about Magnussen's race. It was just he turned up, he did some laps, and they rolled the car back into the garage at the end.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
14th place for K-Mag.
Yeah. Manor up next. Verline in 15th, Ocon in 12th. They were looking like they were going to trouble the scorers at some points.
They were on, what was it, 9th and 8th at one point, I think, Dan?
They were, yes.
If anyone was joining in. Possibly.
Did they get up to 7th at one point, Ocon?
It might have been, but the...
Might have done, but the pace just wasn't there at the end.
And Verline in particular was going backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ocon was holding his own in that points position for quite some time, but unfortunately the car's just not quite underneath him to hold on to a point scoring position.
Yeah, it's got the power, but it's not got the downforce, and they needed the grip on that track in those conditions.
They did,
and it just wasn't there.
No.
Story of the season for any tracks with a kink in them.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's not a big long straight.
Yeah.
Weathermanners are rockets.
Williams up next. No points finish again. Bottas in 11th, and poor Felipe.
Did anybody else get a bit of a lump in their throat? Do you know what?
It was Mercedes coming out.
That's what got me. I was all right. I was fine with Felipe walking down the pit lane when he crashed out with the Brazilian flag up above his head. But when the Mercedes mechanics came out and gave him the guard of honour, I was like, oh. And then he walked past Ferrari and his old team came out and gave him a hug. I was like, Felipe, I feel bad. I've been so hard on you all year. But yeah, it was probably the most emotional retirement from a race, not like from Formula One. The most emotional retirement from a race I can remember.
I did read someone saying, and I got to agree, it's probably nicer that he got that effect of the applause, the guard of honour in the pit lane,
than the K-Mag rolling into the garage after finishing 14th, for example.
Yeah, because next race will be his last race. So this wasn't the last time we'll see him, but
it was his last home race.
Meant a
lot to the Brazilian people.
It was nice for them to be able to do something special and out of the ordinary for him.
It was, yeah.
And it's the Williams rear wing, certainly on Felipe's car.
Obrigado. Yeah, thank you.
A big thank you. Again, Bottas was something out. Really,
he was doing quite well early on, but then he just fell away. Didn't really see much of him during the race, really. I don't know if he was one of the victims to fall foul of the false inters.
I think they did put inters on him.
Yeah, it was way too wet. They did put inters on him because he was struggling like hell. He was doing 1 minute 31s at one point when everybody else was doing 1:26s. But it was an odd decision for anyone to go onto inters. I thought the track was way too wet. It was far too wet.
The fact that there wasn't a line clearing
No.
and it was still raining just as heavily as it was all the way through. I just would have thought that would have been a full wet race all the way through.
Yeah. And we've seen the difference that they make as well. Like places like Monaco, for example, where Hamilton was driving around on a dry track on wet tyres, and he pitted and went straight to super softs.
Yeah.
Ultra softs, sorry, kitten softs. I think he went on to.
He did.
And that was the only stop he made. Whereas some drivers that day went wet intermediates, ultra softs, and there was just no need for it.
We'll have to ask Virtual Statman about that later. I'm sure he'll have some analysis
Quite
for us
possibly
of why they went on to Inters, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. But one team who the wet tyres did work for was Sauber.
Yeah, because they, as I said just before, they kept their drivers out. Ericsson and Nasser didn't fall foul of the Inters thing, and they appear to have a pretty good race.
Well, they've scored points,
They have scored
Which
points.
is fantastic.
which we've not been able to say all season.
9th place for Felipe Nasser. He got a big hug from his family when he came into the pits, because of course it's his home race as well.
Yeah,
He sort of got left behind as the Brazilian poster boy for what happened with Felipe Massa. But yeah, come on, 9th place. The Sauber's only points of the season.
Yeah.
Ericsson fell foul of the Romain Grosjean River and binned it into the pit lane entry, and his car sat across the pit lane entry, which caused a bit of a problem for the Red Bulls.
Exactly the same place as Massa's car.
Yeah, pretty much the same place as Massa.
yeah. 'Cause, I mean, Max Verstappen had already committed to his pit stop and had to take very quick evasive action.
The pit lane entry was still open when Verstappen came in.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that.
we'll
later.
talk about that when
Yeah.
we get to Red Bull. But yeah, Verstappen had to move out of the way and change line pretty bloody quickly just to avoid Ericsson, because he wasn't expecting him to be there. Probably couldn't see him,
Well,
or all that clearly.
Palmer was saying that he couldn't see past like his wing mirror, which was why he hit Kvyat. So it's a miracle that Verstappen was able to avoid Ericsson there.
Yeah, lightning fast reactions. Again, Ericsson was running up there. It worked on the wets. They were doing all right. It's just one of the unpredictable parts of an absolutely torrential race.
Yeah, it was. It could have happened to anyone, but it tended to be the ones who get the bad luck tended to get the bad luck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
We'll come to Hulkenberg later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if Johnny Herbert had been out there,
Oh gosh.
there'd have been a freak hull in the cloud, and his car would have been fried by unprotected UV rays from the sun.
Yeah.
It would have been that much bad
You
luck.
say that? I think Johnny Herbert won that Nürburgring wet race for Stewart, didn't he?
the European Grand Prix.
the European Grand Prix.
97, 98 was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the one that nobody wanted to win because about 6 leading cars crashed out of that one.
Wasn't
Yeah.
that also Stewart's last race?
No, it was her only win.
I thought it was the last race as well. Was that not the last race of the season?
No, because you never have a European race as the last race of the season.
That's true.
Yeah, he. If I remember rightly, Herbert said he looked up and saw literally a patch of blue sky and thought, "I'll switch tyres." And as he came in to switch tyres, the rain stopped. He's like, "Yes."
It's that one time it worked for him.
Didn't
Yeah.
that happen to Lewis at Silverstone?
Last
Yeah.
year, yeah. He went on to wet and it started raining as he was leaving the pits.
Someone's got great radar. Right, McLaren. Go on, Lee. Do the side. Well, Fernando got a point.
No, Fernando did well, yeah.
Fernando did okay. Jensen couldn't make, if I remember from the team radio, he said he couldn't make either tyre work for him.
He actually said at one point, it's almost like I've forgotten how to drive in the wet.
No, he didn't.
That's what it sounded like.
He said, it's not like I've forgotten how to drive in.
I thought he said it's almost
no.
like.
He said that like this car isn't working.
He couldn't get the tyres to work. The wets wouldn't switch on.
But he
The
was
intermediates-
off the pace from
Oh,
FP1.
yeah.
There was at no point did he
No.
look like doing anything
No,
this weekend.
Out in Q1 when Alonso gets into Q3.
Yeah,
counting down the days to a sabbatical, I think.
Yeah, just struggled.
yeah.
Want to forget for him. We've said that way too many times this season.
Yeah, but I think this is the This is the only one that's been one to forget from him, where it looked, he's been totally outshone by his teammates.
It was never going to happen from Friday morning.
Yeah.
Alonso put in a good position because he had the late stop and managed to make up a few places to get into the points. Because he was, I think he stopped with about 20 laps left and got up from, I think it was 16th to 10th.
Yeah.
Getting past both the Manners, Magnussen and Bottas as well. So, it was a good rescue drive.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, he did very well to get a point from McLaren.
Yeah. Toro Rosso next. Danny Kvyat in 13th. Never really...
Well, it wasn't shining all weekend.
No,
and then got hit by a Renault.
Then got hit by a Renault. Somebody stuck a banana in the side pod.
Yeah, he was a bit angry on the team radio as he should have been. Oh, no, hang on a second, he just hit me. And we don't know what damage that caused to him, but he wasn't on it at any point during the weekend.
It was a bit like being back to Kvyat. We just got sacked from
Mardy
Kvyat.
Yeah, I think
I don't think it was quite that bad. But
yeah, I know.
But his performance, not Mardy, but the performance he put in.
But he was driving like Mardy Kvyat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Kvyat.
Yeah. Nearly midnight. I'm trying to make any sense whatsoever. Carlos Sainz equalled his best finish in 6th.
He did.
And was running in 4th at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Toro Rosso is great when it gets the chance to be great.
When Carlos Sainz is behind the wheel.
Pretty much, yeah.
We saw an interesting battle at one point of the race with Sainz leading Ricciardo, leading Verstappen. I think it was at one point. When of course we'll get to Red Bull in a bit, but when Max was on his charge and he passed everybody, then it would have been a bit of an odd moment for Carlos Sainz to be that high up and then see his old teammate fly past him in the car that he thinks he might be in or should be in, perhaps.
It was helped, of course, by good strategy calls because he's one of the people who didn't have any pit stops during the race.
He just pitted with the red flags.
That's very good strategy, isn't it? Not having any pit stops in the race.
Saves you 22 seconds of time.
Yeah.
Then we come to Ferrari.
Yeah.
Mixed fortunes.
Well, you say mixed fortunes. Both of them had spins, but the Vettel managed to survive his early spin on Romain Grosjean River. And
Kimi didn't.
Kimi.
I'd call that mixed fortunes. One was fortunate, one wasn't.
They both spun.
One finished 5th.
Yeah,
one
ended up into the wall.
One ended up in the wall. That's unlucky rather than misfortune.
I'd call it quite unfortunate.
Unfortunate, perhaps.
Stop trying to get out of this. Vettel, I think he got the best out of what could be expected from the car, the conditions, the strategy, the traffic, the whinging. We never got to hear the blue flag song, at least.
Which was one thing. We heard the red flag song.
We heard the red flag song. I think that's like the sequel or something, or that's the B-side.
Wasn't he pretty much constantly saying it was too wet to race?
Yeah.
And he called for red flags before the second red flag was pulled out, but we didn't hear the radio message until after the race had been stopped. But Charlie Whiting, the race director, takes note of what all the drivers say.
Yeah.
And if you've got a 4-time world champion saying this is too wet, this is, how many more crashes have we got to see before they decide to stop the race? Then, if you carried on racing in those conditions, you would be called into question your integrity and what you're doing when the people who are actually out there doing the job are like, this isn't safe.
Yeah.
So
on the other hand, you do have Lewis Hamilton up the front of the grid saying this is fine, we've raced him worse.
But Lewis Hamilton stood to gain a lot by the race to full distance.
That's all I want to point out is that people are working their own agendas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
completely. Vettel was as well, I'm sure.
And I'm sure we heard some creative team radio editing as well. I'm sure there's a lot more was said on team radio than what we actually heard.
Oh, we know that in the case of Gutierrez.
Oh yes.
Oh, definitely.
John, just quickly while we're talking about team radio, I know it's a good thing to have. It's a good thing to come through to people, but is the creative editing a problem now?
I think it is, because if you look at the full transcript from
This
Mexico,
is exactly what I'm thinking.
between Red Bull and Max and Danny,
Yeah,
and Ferrari and Vettel.
yeah,
We made Max out to be the villain,
Yeah,
and it wasn't really very
and
fair.
it wasn't. As it turned out, when you read the whole transcript, that was nowhere near the case.
yeah.
Because the way that it was sort of portrayed to us, with what team radio we got to hear during and just after the race, that Max didn't give the place back when he should have done, and nobody was listening to Vettel, who was complaining about Max's behaviour.
Yeah.
We didn't get to hear all the other conversations between the pit wall and both Red Bull drivers, telling them that nothing had been decided.
Yeah,
And it was going to be sorted out.
The thing is, it should be extra. It should be extra information. It shouldn't create a narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
but no, I think that they are taking a few too many liberties with what they choose to distribute during the race,
Yeah.
and what it actually meant afterwards.
Yeah.
You can pick and choose the words that get seen, or get heard. All of those words have been said, but they're not giving us the full context.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Seb did very well to come back and finish fifth.
Oh, yeah.
From his early spin, and Kimi was, I want to say he was lucky to not have a worse accident, because I mean Belgium '98 came to mind, when one car spins and hits the wall and gets collected by all the other cars.
Yeah.
Could have been a very, very dangerous
But
situation.
Jesus, I mean that was a much slower speed than a
Yeah,
car.
because that was just going down the hill after the hairpin.
Yeah.
This was
On the safety car
Yeah.
restart.
This was at hitting full speed after a safety car start.
The safety car went through the pit lane, didn't stop, and came out the other end of the pit lane and led more laps again.
Well, I think, what was it? One lap, and then the red flagged it.
Yeah.
But
No, it was. Oh yeah.
after
It was
Kimi,
safety car in, safety car out though.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much straight away. Force India are next, with Perez in fourth, just missing out on breaking the record for the most podiums by a Mexican driver, but that will happen.
It will happen
He
eventually.
will get that. And Hulk in seventh.
Well, yeah, I feel when we talked about bad luck before, I do feel a bit sorry for Hulkenberg, because I have a feeling he could have fought for a podium position at
This
earlier
season,
point.
this whole season hasn't been fair to him.
No, earlier points in that race, I think he could have fought for the podium. I'm not sure what his pit stop strategy was, but he didn't appear to benefit from the red flags and just ended up slipping further
He
back
had one stop outside of the red flags.
and pitted for
Perez.
inters.
I would assume so. Yeah, Perez didn't have any stops.
Yeah, so Perez benefited again from the from the no stop situation, doing exactly the same as why should we change what the front what the front runners are doing?
The gap from Hulkenberg to Perez was 4 seconds
At that point,
at the end of the race.
at the end of the race, from 4th to 7th.
Sorry, am I looking at that right? Yes, Perez was 25 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. Hulkenberg 29 seconds.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah,
it was tight, and
So-
there was traffic.
Yeah, Hulkenberg must have done a bit extra towards the end of the race, and I just felt I don't know whether he let himself down or whether the team let him down just in that middle part of the race, because early on it looked like he could be pushing for a podium.
But he was another one that suffered with the inters, wasn't he?
Possibly.
Yeah, I think
It's
he was
difficult to
another-
remember. A lot happened.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on, and it went over a long period of time. I mean, I ended up watching the race on catch up and ended up fast forwarding through both red flag periods. But I was catching a flight at 5:20, and I was avoiding the race. It started at 4:00, and I thought it's going to be coming up to the end by the time I get on the plane, so even if there is a TV in the airport, I'm not going to watch it, and I'll just watch the whole thing when I get in. As it turned out, the race finished after I'd managed to fly back to the Isle of Man from Liverpool and then drive 10 miles from the airport to home after standing waiting in the baggage reclaim area as well. And yeah, by the time I got home at 7 o'clock, the race was still going on.
So
I wasn't expecting that.
No, I mean the live blog that me and Dan were doing. If anybody else was watching what we were doing on that as well, that went on for quite a while. Perhaps not quite as long as it did in Canada 2011. But
I'm glad we weren't blogging that one.
Yeah,
I was just going to say Canada 2011. You'd have had time to go back.
Yeah.
You'd have time to fly to Canada and catch the end of the race. Yeah. But no, I mean we during the red flag period, I mean our live blog actually got quite busy with contributors to the podcast coming in and sort of asking questions and things like that. And I just want to say thanks to the guys and girls who did get in contact. Jana Robansky on Twitter, Dave Flynn, Derek Schleicher, and Sam Hyde all got in touch as well. During the slow periods when nothing was happening with all the red flags, we were all just waiting for news.
Yeah.
Because the delays. I mean, there's delays in races. Always used to be like, oh, just sit around and watch the TV. But now with like social media and everything like that, even the teams were getting involved.
Yeah.
There was a wonderful tweet from Renault. They said they would send out their 4x4.
The Renault trucks tweet.
Yeah. If the race doesn't get restarted, we have a wonderful alternative, and there's Renault truck racing.
Talking of people who were getting in touch, and this is something that was missed out last week. Just want to give a shout out to Mike McPherson, who was one of our guys on the ground in Austin. I put on Twitter last week. Anybody got any questions or a shout out? Let us know. Mike actually tweeted 20 minutes after we finished recording, saying, "Any chance you can say hi?"
Oh right, sorry, Mike.
Sorry you missed that, Mike.
Yeah.
But
No, we can't.
But no, we can't say we can't say hi to you last week.
No, we can't say hi to you last week, so I'll say hi to you now. Hi,
but he did say he'd raise a dram for us of a nice whiskey.
Oh, very good.
So anyone that does that, I'm all in favour. Drink responsibly.
Absolutely.
Hi.
When you drive,
never drink
Drink.
responsibly. Mixed messages.
When you drink, never drive fast.
I'm just going to move on to Red Bull, because if you drink Red Bull, you will drive fast because you will do everything fast.
Really?
Red Bull gives you wins.
Red Bull gives you fucking heartburn.
Well, not quite in this case.
So, Ricciardo.
Red
Bull gives you
suffered
heartbreak.
from strategy.
It was
Came in for Inters when
way too early.
it was arsing it down.
I think maybe they tried to scare Mercedes into doing a pit stop.
I think all they succeeded in doing was scaring Ricciardo into
Complaining that his
tyres were.
But
Yeah.
poor Ricardo, not only was he on the wrong tyres, he got a 5-second penalty for it as well.
Yeah.
You should have had more.
What?
You should have had more than a 5-second penalty.
It was a lenient penalty.
You could easily make up well more than 5 seconds if that was the right pit call to make.
Yeah.
So getting 5 seconds for going into a closed pit could well turn out to just be no penalty at all.
Did you notice though? This is one for anyone that wasn't watching it on Sky, because Sky had Christian Horner on the pit wall talking to them all the way through the race, and as soon as Ricciardo went in, they asked Horner why he'd done that when it looked like the pit lane was closed.
Well, he might have had a puncture.
It might have had a puncture, and the mitigation was straight there.
Yeah.
I think Christian Horner's problem there was he wasn't strong enough in his convictions. We were almost he should have said we were almost convinced he had a puncture.
No, the problem is he would have been radioed to come in before that.
Yeah,
because the carbon fibre he'd have had to drive over would have been from that car.
Yeah.
So unless it was an extremely quick man on the radio that managed to get him in a 50 meter gap going at 200 mile an hour to get him to come in.
I also
in the
think they were
pits.
trying to preempt the safety car as well.
Yeah.
By getting what would have been a free.
Oh, well, that was
stop.
definitely-
I think it was Horner saying that it was a safety issue and we think there was a puncture, was getting the excuse in early so
Yeah.
that the penalty would be more lenient.
I
And
thought that listening
I
to
think
it.
it's worked because he was given the same 5-second penalty that Massa got for overtaking before the safety car line. Because Massa got hit with 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Massa overtook someone.
Gutierrez.
Yeah.
So no. Yeah, Massa overtook Gutierrez before the safety car line. To which I did see a tweet saying, does it count as an overtake if you are stuck behind a slow numpty that doesn't know what the accelerator is? I suppose if you're Charlie Whiting, then yes, but if you're anybody else, probably not. Max Verstappen, what can we say apart from wow?
I call people idiots for voting him driver of the day a few races ago.
That's because they were on that day.
Yeah.
That day they were, and we since learned as well that it's the system that's more broken because of the way that you have to vote driver of the day before the checkered flag.
That's
Yeah.
ridiculous,
However,
isn't it?
much warranted at this race that Max Verstappen won driver of the day. Unbelievable overtaking, finding grip where no one else was finding grip, and just complete fearlessness and the feel that he has for the brake pedal in all conditions.
I mean,
Just stop it at the right point.
I've got to correct you on the fearlessness. There was one point where his heart rate raised slightly.
Well, he did say that it wasn't good for his heart when he lost it. A little
95
bit.
beats a minute to 97, I believe.
Was that what happened?
that was certainly what got mentioned on the commentary when he had that bit of a moment. But what a save!
Yeah. Aside from
Yeah.
that, because essentially you almost lost it to make the save.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
aside from that, wonderful.
I mean,
Completely wonderful.
14th to 3rd,
In what was it, 14 laps?
about that.
Yeah.
But let's
Incredible.
say what should be forgot as well is the fact that his drive before his comeback drive, you know,
He was solid.
Yeah.
He was taking the fight to every car that he was
Yeah.
behind on the restart. Rosberg, I think, it was for the second restart,
Mhm.
and when that unbelievable pass that he made on Nico Rosberg on turn 3,
Yeah.
round the outside, he was nowhere near Rosberg.
Yeah.
He was
Nowhere near.
He was finding lines and grip where there shouldn't have been.
Absolutely, and I know there's been conversations as to whether or not he is or isn't like Ayrton Senna with a drive like that, but I can only bring to mind Ayrton Senna, who was able to find grip where no one else could find grip.
Yeah, I mean, we had a tweet from 1800s man saying he was racing against drivers with 40 plus laps on the tyres and they were new. Let's stop anointing him as Senna. Yeah, he's not the new Senna. He is Max Verstappen.
Yeah, he is. He just needs to. If he drives like that and more consistently, then we won't have any arguments. But what a performance to put in, especially after what we said a couple of weeks ago with the Mexico race, where he was a little bit naughty, and then the team radio sort of. We cleared that up with team radio, and then with the circuit of the Americas as well in Austin, he was. He ruined his teammate's race and still got driver of the day. So
Okay, I've got a question about yesterday's drive. So
yeah,
I think it was a great drive.
yeah, I do.
When he lost it, when he had that spin,
Moment, yeah.
when he had that moment, he was pretty lucky to catch it. There was a huge amount of skill to be able to catch it, but it would have taken so little for him to end up in the barrier there.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
half luck, yeah.
If he'd ended up in the barrier, he would have overtaken about 5 or 7 of those 14 cars by then.
No, that was well earlier on that he.
No, that was when he was on his charge.
No, he had his moment when he was ahead of Rosberg. Because he got to turn 1 and Rosberg was still
Right.
behind him.
Yeah, that was before the last stop, because they.
I thought it was when
No,
he was on his
he
charge.
overtook Rosberg the lap before. He put about 3 or 4 seconds on Nico, then lost it, but still came out ahead
Oh, of course,
of
yeah.
Rosberg, and
So-
then got called in.
So he would have had the overtake on Rosberg then. Would we still be saying how good he was if he'd had a bit of bad luck on that spin?
No, because the slight bit more of bad luck on that spin, and he would have been in the wall.
Yeah.
And we would have
But
been.
then would we have been saying driver of the day?
No, of course not,
No.
because he hit the wall.
And we wouldn't have seen the huge string of overtakes at the end, but
I think he got driver of the day for the
Yeah,
in my
for that
mind,
charge.
for that charge back onto the podium.
would we be saying how reckless he was? And
But as well, I mean, the don't forget about the overtaking with Perez. He was alongside Perez for 3 or 4 corners, and there was a little bit of elbows out.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was all legal. So yeah, there is a ridiculous amount of bravery from every driver as well, not just Max Verstappen, but every driver that engaged in battle with him as well.
Yeah.
Just that Max came out on top every time on his charge.
Yeah, this week he was just on top form, and everything luck-wise went his way as well.
yeah,
And it just made for it was the perfect storm, no pun intended.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd argue no luck went his way.
No,
Apart from the save.
that save, yeah.
Yeah, but like strategy and stuff like that, like
They did put him onto Inters as
Yeah.
well, didn't they?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
had they not done that, I
Twice,
actually,
the two times as well.
Yeah.
He had as many stops as Ricciardo.
Yeah.
yeah, had he not done that, he would have been in with a chance of winning the race. I believe that. And
You see-
actually, I was saying before about people getting in touch. I had Jana on Twitter message me saying, "Do you think this reckless driving will be the end of Max's race today?" And then at the end of it, she sent me a message, and I know I was whining earlier, but wow, that was a legendary performance.
You see, I think without the issues, he'd have had Rosberg, so he'd have been second. But what would have been interesting
Maybe we could have had Lewis.
is to see what Lewis could have done about him.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, Rosberg had everything to lose by fighting him.
Mm.
Hamilton, it's a different equation, because if Hamilton hadn't won, then would that have meant that Rosberg won the championship?
No.
Or just,
I don't know.
No, if
Yeah, because Rosberg had to win, didn't he,
No, I think
to win the championship?
He had to finish 7 points, more than 7 points ahead of
Yeah.
Lewis, or more than 6 points ahead. Sorry, of Lewis. So if Lewis had still finished ahead of him,
Yeah.
he would have been champion.
But Lewis had a lot more to lose by not coming first
Yeah,
than Rosberg did by not coming second.
Yeah.
So I think we would have seen some very hard fighting by
Mm.
Lewis.
but Max did that charge, and the yardstick for him at least were Mercedes.
Yeah. What is there a great deal to say about Mercedes, because
Rosberg ran wide once,
Lewis just
didn't.
didn't.
But quite possibly also deserved driver of the day.
I think so.
Didn't actually make one mistake. The
Lewis
strategy
Hamilton
calls
you're
by-
talking about
yeah,
now, yeah.
Strategy calls by the team were right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, the
The
Mercedes...
fact that we didn't actually see him for the entire race was...
And there could have been so many times as well that he'd have been there. He and Mercedes could have been drawn in to sticking Inters on the
The
cars.
thing is, he got every single safety car restart spot on.
Yeah.
There was one, I think, where he was a little bit, where Rosberg was a bit close behind him. I think it was the last safety
Yeah,
car
but
restart.
every
time he pulled 5-6
fucking ace.
seconds out.
Yeah.
5 or 6 seconds out. I think he finished the race 11 seconds ahead of Rosberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And considering there was another safety car as well, and he had to build that gap up.
yeah,
So it's
every time.
it's not like that's 11 seconds over the course of a race.
No,
It's
it was 11 seconds over the last 15
20 laps or something.
Yeah. No, it was a workmanlike performance, which is exactly what he needed.
And as he said at the end of the race,
champion's drive.
I'm hunting, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it all comes down to 2 weeks' time, last race of the season. We've got what we wanted. We're going into the last race of the season in a fortnight
With the championship
with
fight.
the championship still up for grabs.
I think Lewis is going to do exactly the same thing as he's done for the last 2 races in
And Abu Dhabi.
In Abu Dhabi.
He's done everything he needed to.
Yeah, but I think he's going to put. Who knows what will happen? But he's going to put Rosberg in the position where, because Lewis can't win the championship, but he can put Rosberg in the position to lose it.
lose it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it's going to go.
All in all, I think even for the duration, one of the best races that we've had this season, because
I think probably the best race we've had this season.
Everything was happening all the way through the race. That's the kind of thing we want.
Yeah.
It is. It's just the stoppages were a bit annoying. The fact that it was like 4 hours. Was it almost?
I think the only issues with stoppages I had was the fact that there was a couple of times where they were behind the safety car and they red flagged the race, and when they were actually red flagged and in pit lane, it was the best conditions they had all day.
Yeah, that was quite annoying.
Yeah. I think although they were still clearing the track at the time, so there wasn't a great deal that they could have done.
Don't forget crazy times next year though. After red flags, grid times.
Yeah. Couple of things that got raised during that. Would a virtual safety car rather than a safety car help create a drier line during wet weather?
So that they're moving it a bit
So they
faster
can move.
pace.
Yeah.
But what's the? Yeah, I mean, but what's then the point in the safety car? Because the whole idea is to try and slow them down, isn't it? Safety car.
Well, virtual safety car slows them down.
The actual safety car bunches them up.
Yeah.
Now that we have the virtual safety car, the actual safety car bunches them up so that
Tracks can be
cleared.
cleared.
Yeah.
So virtual safety car might be
the way to go
a sensible way for wet racing.
if they want to create a dry line
The
racing. And the other one, Martin Brundle never actually got around to finishing answering the tweet because he lost it. But somebody tweeted, why not use something like a GP2 car as a safety car so that you've got a bit more speed?
He did actually answer that one.
Did he answer
Yeah.
that? I may have missed that.
Basically, you've got to have the safety car ready to go out any weather condition at a moment's notice.
Rather than go through a full start-up routine on cut tyre.
Full start-up routine, put the right tyres for the conditions on.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give it that. So I'm firmly in favour of the virtual safety car for the dry line creation.
I spotted something on the medical car, didn't I? When Ericsson got into the medical car.
The driver.
Yeah, the driver of the medical car, or at least on the sticker on the side of the window, Andy van der Meijden drives the medical car for the FIA.
Was he not
world touring car champion way back in the day, 90s?
I suppose if anyone's used to handling a estate car around a racetrack, it's going to be a touring car driver.
Yeah. So he's probably next in line to be the safety car driver after Bert Mailander if Bert Mailander ever retires.
Well, I forget how long he's been there, but it's been a few years.
Many years. I'm pretty sure he was.
Chris is now reading something.
He's a footballer apparently.
Because if anyone's going to know how to drive an estate car around a racetrack, it's going to be a footballer.
Absolutely.
Well, because all these footballers get paid too much by these big cars go on track days.
Is that soccer ball football?
Yeah, soccer ball football.
No,
We'll ignore that
you
comment
wouldn't get an American footballer driving something so small.
Yeah.
They all drive like Hummers.
Oh, there you go.
Don't all British
Scourers.
footballers drive Bentleys?
Bentleys with leopard skin seats usually.
I will have to correct that and come back to next week's podcast with who I thought I was thinking about.
Yeah, I know.
Obviously not that guy.
I know who you think you mean, but he's got a name like a touring car driver.
Yes.
I think that covers the race, doesn't it?
Pretty much.
I think so.
I think we should possibly move on.
Let's move on.
So, on to the news then. And the news really is there's no news outside of the driver market.
Not really, no.
But it's kind of more or less cleared the silly season up, and it's just the expensive seats that are available now.
There's some cheap seats as well, isn't there?
Well,
no one's actually confirmed at Sauber yet, and no one's confirmed at Manor, if I remember right.
yeah, but they're the expensive seats because they need the most money.
Ba-dum-ba-dum-bum-bum.
Hey.
Though none of them are going to be as expensive as that seat at Williams.
No,
that's cost approximately half a team.
Yeah. And the Canadian Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think
but to Lawrence Stroll, that's pocket change.
It is, yeah. But I think the domino effect started, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this all happened like last week, just after we finished recording.
Yeah, of course.
Which always happens. No, I think it was Palmer staying at Renault.
No, K-Mag was first.
Yeah.
K-Mag to Haas.
K-Mag to Haas was first. When that broke, somebody got in touch with me about 10 minutes after I posted the story up on Facebook, saying, does that mean Haas have just confirmed Palmer for Renault then, because they're going to want to keep at least one driver? And
Which,
they
yeah,
did.
they did.
It turns out wasn't he like fifth in line?
He wasn't first choice, apparently.
Both Force India drivers.
Yeah.
Valtteri Bottas.
The guy they got.
Esteban Ocon and Palmer.
Yeah.
Palmer was the fifth choice.
Jeez.
Good old fingers helped me there.
Yeah. Well, Magnussen might have been a choice ahead of him. We don't know. But Magnussen has decided not to let the team decide and has gone to Haas of his own accord.
I think they'd have kept Magnussen. I think they would have kept Magnussen.
I think
over
what was
Palmer.
on the table for Magnussen, from what I've read, was a 1 year extension,
And
and
he-
then a 1 year extension, and then a 1 year extension.
Where what he's done is he's gone to Haas and got, is it a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal?
I think it's 2 years with an option on the third.
Well, there you
Yeah.
go. And that has that led Esteban Gutierrez to confirm that he will not be at Haas next year.
I did that weeks ago.
Yeah, everyone did that. Everyone did that a long time. I mean, he's been driving better since mid-season, and he's been
Still
very
shit.
vocal. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering though, is he going to be in that Haas in Abu Dhabi after his little disagreement?
Well, yeah, we'll see, won't we? But the I think the driver market now. There are a few seats open. So Gutierrez is out of Haas. Magnussen's in. Palmer's staying at Renault, and Ocon has been confirmed as a Force India driver for next year, which is not surprising given his performance.
Yeah,
So opt off.
Ock off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
Esteban, ock off.
I think that's what Verline said, because he wants to speak to Force India to ask why he was overlooked, and he wants confirmation from Mercedes as to why he wasn't first choice as well. Is he getting a little bit ahead of himself, or a little bit up his own arse?
I think he's getting a bit up his own arse.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
He just
to be honest with you,
being a little bit precious, doesn't he?
well, no. The thing is, okay, a second year at Manor for Pascal Wehrlein isn't the worst thing in the world. Neither is a year at Force India for Esteban Ocon. But if Ocon doesn't perform at Force India, there's less chance that any other team would like to retain him. Whereas Wehrlein's got the chance to steadily improve.
Yeah.
So I actually think. If I were Toto Wolff or whoever gets to speak to Pascal Wehrlein from Mercedes, I'd maybe put my arm around him and be like, "Don't listen, okay? We've
Don't listen.
We've listen. We've let him go because he's got the talent to succeed at Force India. But your turn will come. You will be on Mercedes once Nico Rosberg retires."
Good to see you.
Just me doing an impression of Toto. He wasn't actually here that time.
Really?
I'm shocked.
That just sounded like
No, I could
that
go.
sounded like Toto normally does.
What
I
did
can
I
get
say
him.
last week about breaking kayfabe?
I can get Toto if you want, but that wasn't actually him.
Oh, right, okay.
One guest per show, I think. It might get a bit too confusing.
Fair
It's
enough.
a fairly small room
We've
for
already had
podcasting
one
again.
guest.
Is that
so-
like when my mum used to give me a letter from Father Christmas, but she was allowed to write it for Father Christmas?
in cursive handwriting?
Yeah.
Cursive or cursing handwriting?
Probably cursing.
Yeah.
That's where he got it from.
Everybody gets a present from Santa Claus, don't they? Or is that just me? If we used to get a present from Santa, and be like,
You
Santa
used to,
left me a
yes.
present. What is this? And it took me many, many years to work out that it might not have been Santa's writing.
What do you mean used to?
Yeah, I don't get one anymore. I'm too old.
Do you know? I
I'm
do.
too old. Yeah.
I actually got someone a present that's going to be coming from Santa when we do a Secret Santa in a few weeks.
Yes.
This weekend. It's a quality one, is this?
I mean, should we do 3 legs, 4-wheel Secret Santa? That
Yeah.
would be good fun.
Yeah, we probably
Yeah.
should, but
Until one of us goes too far and Secret Santa actually involves breaking into somebody's house.
I was the secretest of all the Santas.
the person I'm talking about doesn't listen to the show, and she's got no interest in Formula One. There's a load of us going out for a meal. We always do every Christmas, and we
Yeah.
always do a Secret Santa. Person that I've got this year, she is well known for putting her drink down, whatever it is, be it a can, be it a bottle, be it a glass, and
I
losing
do
it.
hope nobody puts any hypnol in this.
So I bought.
I can remember everything.
I bought her a Viking drinking horn
Oh, you can't put them down.
with a holster.
Well, hang on. Okay.
It's got a little leather holster that you actually strap onto your belt, and you can.
Is that a genuine Viking holster? Is that how they carried their drinks around?
Apparently, yes.
So they can have their Magnum on the other side.
Well, it wasn't
Ice
sold.
creams.
It wasn't sold to me by a genuine Viking, unless the Vikings came from Wolverhampton.
No, they didn't.
I think they came through Wolverhampton, didn't they?
Oh, in that case, it might have been one that stopped off for a while. But yeah, one of my friends this year is getting a Viking drinking horn from Santa.
They might have stopped off in Wolverhampton to get curry because I had one of the best curries I've ever had in my life in Wolverhampton. Amazing curry.
It claims it's one of the places that claims to be the curry capital of Great Britain, but as everyone knows, that's Bradford anyway.
Yep,
Yeah.
Bradford.
Oh yeah.
Had an amazing curry in Bradford at about half midnight one night for about 80 pence.
Fairly early on then.
Yeah.
Fairly early on,
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on here?
Done it again.
Put your phone on silent, Paul.
Right. Well, I would do, but that's kind of an urgent message from.
Yes. Right. Okay.
From the past.
Yeah.
For the Christmas.
From the past. Yes.
Message from the past.
I suppose it depends how I edit this. But.
It could be from the future.
It could be from the future. We haven't decided yet. So aside from that, we still have 4 seats to be, let's just say, bought and paid for.
Bought and paid for. So at Manor we're going for who?
Ericsson is almost certainly going to get one of those. Get one of the Sauber seats.
Ericsson at Sauber. What are you saying, Paul?
I am saying Sauber staying as it is, and Verline and Gutierrez in Manor.
Verline and Gutierrez.
Ericsson will definitely be in
Manor.
Sauber.
Sauber.
In the Sauber, but it all depends on whether Banco de Brazil is in the Sauber as well.
Right.
Because I think at that point the pilot doesn't matter, does it?
No, not really.
It's about the sponsorship. So if that bank still wants to be involved in Formula One, then NASA will be. I think if it's a Haas driver that is in the Haas, it will be Grosjean. But I've got a funny feeling that Grosjean might have lost his seat this weekend with what.
I don't know, but
Gutierrez will not be in that team.
Yeah,
Gutierrez is already
Grosjean might have lost
confirmed.
his seat, but Grosjean's been confirmed.
No, he's not confirmed, is he?
Yeah.
Gutierrez has confirmed he's out the team.
Yeah, but Grosjean hasn't actually got a full-on contract yet, does he?
Let me just have a look.
Because the amount he's been complaining over the past few months, admittedly, you would complain about a car that's brakes turn on randomly.
Yeah, of course.
Or don't turn on randomly. But he has been quite vocal about it, and I wouldn't be too shocked if he wasn't there. I'd like to see NASA being given a decent car.
Yeah, he did, as we've already spoken about, very well in Brazil this week, just gone. But everybody was all concentrating on Felipe Massa with it being his home race. It wasn't that he didn't get the backing really of that he should have got from his home fans, because everybody was concentrating so hard on that emotional Massa retirement. So
I think Massa didn't pick up a huge amount of backing from the Brazilian fans until he started doing well.
Yeah.
Just want to say I've got the press release from Haas here, and Grosjean is confirmed for next season.
He definitely.
Right.
Yeah,
Grosjean's confirmed.
This was a Haas press release dated the 11th. Haas F1 team secures 2017 driver lineup by signing Kevin Magnussen to join Roman Grosjean. And that is from Haas themselves.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that.
Did they put another one out dated the 13th saying, oops, don't read that?
Can't see another one, so they've either taken it off the mailing list or they haven't sent it.
I think in Sauber you'll see. I have to agree. I don't think they'll change. I think it'll be Ericsson and Nasser. But I think at Manor, Jordan King was going to get that second seat that's been left vacant by Esteban Ocon.
Maybe, yeah. It's a good shout. Do you know what the thing is, thinking about it though, you know the Haas lineup, that has the potential to be the weakest driver lineup on the grid next year.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Because it's like, it's a team full of potential with two drivers that barely seem to meet their potential.
Two drivers that Enstone went, no thanks.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's the epitome of a reject team.
Yeah, the Enstone rejects.
Yeah.
There's a name for a band.
If they get their shit together.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I'm not saying it's nailed on.
But they could win every race, one driver each time, going, yeah, I'll have a good race this time. And the other one going, I'll drive into a wall before the race this time.
Oh dear. Right. So yeah. Apart from that, we haven't really got.
You're going the wrong way.
Haven't really got much more news, have we?
No, I think that is pretty much all. Formula Lee.
Oh yeah.
Formula Lee. Okay, so Lee, where were we this week? We were in Brazil, weren't we? For the last 2 weeks, we had a practice week and then a full on race week. We have a top 10 out of many entrants. How many entrants did we have?
24.
24 entrants.
Yeah, just want to say, not spoiling anything, but Ian Neal, get your steering wheel sorted out because your times are crap. One spoon.
That was almost a rhyme. That was almost poetry. That Paul.
I'll try less hard next time or something.
What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, man?
I don't know.
Right, let's start at the top 10 then. So we'll post up all of the times up on the website as we always do.
Yeah, they'll be up by the time you get to hear this, along with the latest championship standings.
Yep, so all the top 10, these people will be in the points. So in 10th place, yours truly, it's myself, with a 1 minute 11.371, which is pretty funny because we were talking last week about me and Lee doing exactly the same time to the thousandth.
Yeah, pretty close.
Pretty close. Squeaky bum time.
Get any higher and only Bats will hear you.
When you look at 9th place, it's Lee with a 111.370. 1,000th faster than me. And 1,000th of a second, if I remember right from Singapore, was it last year when Rosberg was beaten by Hamilton by 7,000ths? They worked out that it was like a couple of foot.
Yeah.
Like, so what's 1,000th? That must be like half a wing.
Well, it must be centimeters.
Centimeters in that. But yeah, no. Fair enough. You were 1,000th quicker than me.
If there's anyone else I'd like to be that close to, it's you.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Hang on.
That means you're on top of me. Careful now.
Hey.
But we are the only two.
Whatever gets me up.
We're the only two 3-legs 4-wheelers that made the top 10.
Is this the point
you're
where
thinking?
No, don't say it, baby.
Right, back to seriousness now. We were at 8th place, Adam Garcia with a 1 minute 11.196. In 7th place, James Penny with a 1 minute 11.143. Now, the top 6 drivers all did a time within the parameters of 1 minute 10. So that was awesome. That if you managed a 1 minute, anything outside of 1 minute 10, basically you weren't going to make the top 6.
Yeah.
So Josh Stewart starts us off with the top 6 with a 1 minute 10.970.
Isn't Jackie Stewart's actual son called Josh?
No.
Different spelling of the surname, and Josh Stewart is Australian.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
He's not a walking shortbread tin.
And a very, very close, but not quite as close as me and Lee were. In 5th place, it's Pete Bull with a 1 minute 10.920. So
he's merely giving a reach around.
Yeah.
He's not close.
And then we had in 4th place is Chris Rowden with a 1 minute 10.856. A wonderful effort from Chris Rowden. And then the top 3 on the podium, once again, is the Flying Flynn with a 1 minute 10.737. And shock horror, in 2nd place is Derek Schleicher.
What?
It's the first time he's not first.
What
But it doesn't matter. He's already Formula League champion. He's just lost his 100% record.
He's doing a Hamilton from last year.
Yeah. He's doing a Hamilton. He's won the title. He's just easing off a little bit. So a 1 minute.
He's going to crash his virtual car into the wall in Monaco in a minute.
Is that what's going to happen?
Did I mention
after
that
partying too hard?
Did I mention that Formula E has quadruple points for the last race?
A 1 minute 10.693 puts Derek Schleicher into 2nd, which means we have a new and only the 2nd ever winner in Formula Lee, Conor McIlroy, with a 1 minute 10.537. Well done, Conor. You are this week's Formula Lee winner.
Good
You've just
work,
applauded
Conor.
a bass player.
What?
You've just applauded a bass player.
He's driving, not his pretend instrument.
So, we need a new Formula Lee rules for the next week, because obviously Brazil is now closed, and these are the results for Brazil. So we've got 2 weeks before the race in Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
So
Lee, it is your job to come up with something.
I haven't really thought about it, so I'm just going to have to do it off the top of me Swede.
do it off the cuff.
What car haven't we used? Let's do it. Let's make a team effort.
Have we? Okay. We've used a Mercedes. We've
We
used
have.
a Red
We haven't
Bull,
used a
we've
Haas.
Ferrari.
We haven't used a Renault.
Ferrari. Sorry,
No, we
we've
haven't
used
used
Ferrari.
Ferrari.
Williams. We haven't used a
Haven't
Williams.
used a
Haven't used a
Williams.
Sauber.
Let's use a Williams then.
Use a Williams.
Yeah.
Williams, yeah.
What?
If we go for an official time, so you get the sunset thing.
Yeah,
Can you do an official
sunset.
time?
Yeah.
Can you do an official time?
Yeah,
on
you
there?
can.
There'll be a sunset.
There'll be a
setting.
sunset setting.
Sunset or official. We'll
Yeah.
post it up on Facebook tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's got to be dry because you
Wet.
can't have it. What?
You don't get wet deserts.
It rained last year.
Just before the race.
Yep.
The week before the race, it did rain in Abu Dhabi for the first time in like 11 months.
Yep.
So
And
No,
technically, we
go on,
would
keep it
we
dry.
would be there the week before.
keep it dry. Come on.
Nope. Wet.
Yeah.
Wet.
No, come on, Lee.
No. Wet.
We'll go on strike.
I'll stick these in a manner again.
Actually, no.
If it's a
We'll-
team effort.
I'll tell you what, we'll do it in the wet, and this gives us the perfect opportunity to request a new video from Charlie Jefferson, who's good at doing this sort of thing. We would like to see a video montage of F1 2016 crashes to the soundtrack of Missing by Everything But the Girl, which includes the line, I miss you like the desert missed the rain.
There you go. There's your.
That's what you've caused. I'm pointing at Lee. He's looking at me like I'm...
You've caused the Tracy Thorn revival.
Yes.
Now hang your head in shame.
I like that song.
So is it dry now then?
No.
Come on, Lee.
Yeah, it could be dry.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
We're doing it in the dry.
Yeah.
Thank God for that. Might stand a chance.
Oh.
So, Abu Dhabi, dry, Williams.
Yeah.
Sun-
it's a long lap
sunset.
at Abu Dhabi as well. It's not like 1 minute 40 something. Or...
Yeah, if it was in the way, it'd be like 2 minutes plus.
Yeah.
That would just encourage swearing, and we don't want to encourage people to swear.
So you got 2 weeks.
Cock, fuck, bugger.
You got a practice week basically between now and next week's podcast, and then we won't give out too many times or anything. We might talk about what we each other are doing time wise.
But if you want to share your times, the Facebook page is there.
and share your setups as well. People tend to share.
Everyone shares setups, which is great.
Derek and Josh Stewart as well. Derek Schleicher and Josh Stewart sharing setups on the Facebook page and talking about even just tweaking suspension settings to get extra tenths, extra hundredths of a
Tyre
second.
pressures. It's all about the tyre pressures.
Tyre pressures was an interesting one. I was
Yeah.
going, in Brazil, I was going full tyre pressures until I
I-
realised that you don't have to do that, and I actually did a lot better as soon as I took my tyre pressures down to,
See,
to
I
what
only beat
what I
you
used.
when I knocked my tyre pressures up.
Did you? Well, there you go. Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember who I was having a auto-corrected conversation with the other day. They were tweeting settings, and he said he was having trouble tweeting settings. And I said,
Was that Dave Flynn? I
Yeah,
think I
so
saw that conversation.
take a screen grab and went, no, I meant tweaking settings. I'm like,
Yeah,
I think I might still be drunk
Yeah,
actually.
the flying Flynn.
But is he really Flynnish?
Well, there you go. But yeah, another podium for Dave Flynn, second for Derek Schleicher, and a win for Conor McIlroy. So, yes.
So next week's Formula League challenge is underway.
Yes, it is.
Right, for the first time on Three Legs, Four Wheels, we actually have a guest with us tonight, and it is none other than virtual statman himself, Sean Kelly.
Hello, Sean.
Hi, mate.
Hi, Sean.
Good evening, Isle of Man listeners, and wherever you are in the world today, from the other side of the world.
I don't know, we're big in Atlanta.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Big in Atlanta, nice one. Well, yes.
And Arkansas for some reason. Just want to say thank you so much for joining us on this show, and we picked a great race for it because Brazil was there was a lot going on.
Yeah, I planned it that way. I mean, we could have been doing a race like, some boring race, but obviously with me coming on the show, I wanted to make sure we jazzed it up a bit.
Did you order Bernie's
So
sprinklers, did you?
I told Red Bull before the race, I said, stick them on inters, mess it up, give us something to talk about, and sure enough, they came through. Thanks a lot, Christian.
Was that were you the man who brought the rain to the circuit as well, Sean? Was that down to you?
Well, I didn't bring the rain. I must confess, I did do a very, very comprehensive analysis of tyre degradation and everything, which we distributed among the broadcasters after Friday, saying, this is what's going to happen if it's a dry race. This A, B, and C things will happen. And then basically threw the lot out on Sunday morning because, well, we're using that today, folks. It's not going to make a blindness bit of difference, which is a shame. A lot of work goes into that stuff, which people don't see, so that we can we anticipate exactly how tired egg's going to work and everything. And then when you get to Sunday morning, you think, I wasted 4 hours on Friday doing that nonsense. We're never going to actually write a day.
Was any part of the stats that you worked out involved putting inters on a car when it was clearly full wet weather?
Well, I can tell you why that happened, and that is when Kevin Magnussen pitted, his outlap from the pits in sector 2 and 3, he pulled in about 4 seconds on Jolyon Palmer, and I jumped on headsets to our commentators at NBC saying, Magnussen just pulled 4 seconds on Palmer. Now, admittedly, Palmer was in traffic, but you're looking at that and think, yeah, this is a no-brainer. Box, box, box. Let's get the inters on. So everybody, if you remember, there was 4 or 5 cars that came in on the next lap.
Yeah.
I'm convinced they reacted just to that data because you know how it is switching in changeable weather. If you're 1 lap out, you could be losing 7 or 8 seconds. So they jumped on it, and then realized, oh wait a minute, I think maybe that was a bit of a false flag. I think maybe Magnussen was a lot quicker just because he had clear track. And in reality, it's actually not such a good tyre to be on. What I didn't understand was why Red Bull persevered with it and went to it a second time.
Yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense to me because when I was watching the order come up on the graphic on screen, everybody who was on inters was in the back half of the field. All the other people who were on wet tyres were like the first top 10 drivers.
If I remember right, when the Red Bulls went on to inters, Jenson Button was on inters and was doing a similar lap time to a fair few of the guys on wets. So didn't look absolutely crazy at the time, but it was a bit of a gamble.
Well, what I said to our guys on, because I don't just do stats, I do race strategy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. When the Red Bulls came in, I said this is high risk, high risk, high reward. They're really rolling the dice to try and win this race, I think. Mm-hmm. And I said, with all the data I have in front of me, and I have a lot of data, a lot of stuff that you don't hear in the broadcast.
Yeah.
From all the data I'm looking at, this is a real Hail Mary, let's hope it dries out quick situation because I don't see this working. If the weather persists the way it has been, this is not going to work. They will not pull because the delta is 22 seconds. So you've got to make right away. You've got to make 22 seconds up.
Yeah.
To cover the latest extra stop. I didn't see them doing that, and in fact, I saw them say, they're a tenth, 2-3 tenths quicker. Well, what's the point? You're stuck in traffic. You lose track position. You haven't got enough of an advantage there. And sure enough, of course, when Max Box put him onto wets, then was the prelude to one of the all-time most memorable Formula One drivers of our generation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Born of a strategy error. If they'd just left Max out there, and then Ricciardo as well, if they'd just left them out there in the first place, then all might have been well.
I think if they'd left, if Max hadn't been on the inters,
conspicuously quiet.
Oh, sorry, mate. I think if he was out on the wets instead of the inters there and went to the end like the others, do you think he could have had a go at Rosberg with the pace he had? Because I know he had fresh tyres, didn't he, for the pace at the end? But do you think he would have had a push towards him?
Well, the tyres that went on the car, I don't think they were new wets.
Were they not?
No, I don't think they were completely new.
I think they were about 20 laps newer than any of the ones out there, weren't they? Is that
right?
If I remember right.
I haven't studied it in detail yet, but I'm sure he would have got Rosberg. Had he not been held back by the fact they'd messed up with strategy and using the inters and messing around with that. It was so obvious that the inters were just not going to be coming into play. Maybe Red Bull were trying to make amends for using the inter earlier in the race. I don't know. You'd have to ask them what the thinking was. From my seat, as they were coming into the pits to take the inters, this is high risk, and I don't see any calculation that bears this out. But you've always got to remember, as a broadcaster, as a viewer, the teams know more than us.
Oh,
they
course.
are.
Yeah. Well, goes without saying.
They are at the coalface. They have data that we are not privy to. But sometimes that can be counterproductive. For instance, I'll take another example of Red Bull messing up on strategy was early in the race in Baku. And that was a dry race, of course. And
they struggled with the tyres, didn't they, there?
I mentioned earlier, I prepare tyre data after Friday. This is how the tyre behaves on this track. We had anticipated a time between laps 4 and 6, a very high graining in this tyre they were starting the race on. And that came in, but it came in like a double heavy. It was even worse than we thought it was going to be. Now, a lot of guys boxed, Red Bull came in and everything, and you remember Ferrari radioed Vettel, say, box this lap, and Vettel was saying, are you sure? It's kind of coming back, it's not too bad. And kind of Vettel talked them out of it, and they stayed out. And Red Bull had ended up making an extra stop they didn't need to make. And then they totally messed it up because they didn't have the remaining tyres, the dry tyres they had for the race. It threw them off. They didn't have enough softs or enough mediums.
They had mediums, didn't they? I think in the end.
And they were all over the shop. So it is sometimes the teams know too much. They sit there and they overanalyze it. Sometimes it's better from our perspective as a broadcaster when we've got some data, and you think, okay, as a percentage call, just keep track position. If in doubt, keep track position, because if you're in the lead, they've got to pass you. That's the first fundamental. So, yeah, you just leave it out there; it'll be fine. That second Red Bull stop, I don't understand, but it did allow us to have this amazing talking point about Max Verstappen, who I wasn't totally sold on. I will admit, I did say
I wasn't.
I thought, well, there's big hype. I've seen big hype about a lot of drivers. Mm-hmm. I've been around this for 30 years now. I've seen a lot come and go. Who could forget Enrique Benaldi, for instance?
Everybody. That's who.
It's possible this guy is not as good as you tell me he is. Convince me. And Spain was not that race. I know he won in Spain, but he won in Spain just simply because they made one less stop.
Yeah.
If it could have just been he'd been 3 stopping Ricciardo 2 stops and Ricciardo wins the race.
And
simple.
Ricciardo seemed to have better pace than him, didn't he? As well, he didn't have the strategy to win.
Yeah, Ricciardo was unlucky in Spain. Verstappen, I don't want to say Verstappen was lucky. You never just win a race purely by luck.
No.
But
I've got 2 words there: Olivier Panis.
Yeah, exactly. But even then, even in Monaco 1996, Panis was a fantastic drive that day. I know he had the right setup and everything. If you actually watch that race back, he made a lot of passes. It wasn't. Yes, he needed the guys ahead of him to retire, but he was still. Even if Damon Hill's engine doesn't blow, he still finishes second in that race. So.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the thing is this. Yes, Verstappen won in Spain. This was the race that people will say, I remember watching that Max Verstappen at the Brazilian Grand Prix of 2016, and we knew then that this guy was going to beat Michael Schumacher's world championship record and win 100 Grand Prix and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. That could be the conversation we're having 25 years from now.
Yeah, this was Senna at Donington. This was Schumacher in 96 at, where was it? Spain, yeah.
Spain. To me, bears more resemblance to Gilles Villeneuve. I don't compare him to Senna because I haven't seen. There's still some impetuousness there that puts him more in the Villeneuve category, and that's what makes him so exciting. Senna was not exciting in a race, not in the way that a Nigel Mansell was or a Gilles Villeneuve, because Senna very, very rarely messed it up.
During a race.
Yeah. Senna on one lap in qualifying, high boost pressure, qualifying tyres, mesmeric. In the race, more meticulous. Gilles Villeneuve, Nigel Mansell, much more fallible. And we've seen Verstappen make a balls of it a few times, like
on Sunday almost.
The whole weekend in Monaco was a disaster. Crashed in qualifying, crashed in practice, crashed in the race. Mexico, he got the penalty, and he was all off, lawn mowing. So he's not without fault.
Yeah, see, Monaco.
That makes him more exciting, though. That makes it that's the thing that we like. It's like, is this guy going to just do something a complete genius, or is he going to be a numpty and just stick it in the barriers? And that's what makes it so exciting. That's why Oasis is a more exciting band than Coldplay, because this could be completely self-destructive, But I want to watch it because I want to see how it plays out.
Yeah, see, Monaco, I thought, when we always look at, if you take Panis out of the equation, it's been world champions essentially that have either won at Monaco or great drivers which have dominated there. I did wonder to myself, I did wonder to myself when he made such a mess of the weekend. I thought, well, I wonder if that goes both ways. Did it tell us something then when he wasn't good around Monaco for the future? But I think Brazil certainly outshone that.
Some questions, yeah. Sean, just going back to the track position thing as well in Brazil. Do you think that Sauber's performance and Manna's performance during the race as well, that was because they managed to stay out and gained track positions whilst everybody else pitted, and that's why they had such a successful race?
I think undoubtedly so. Yeah, because while everybody else was, fanning around in the pits. They just left their drivers out there. So you sort it out. There's no reason for us to move yet. I think they would have looked at the field immediately in front of them and say, let's do the opposite of them.
Yeah.
Aided by the fact that the drivers are obviously saying, look, I don't fancy inters on this. I'm barely keeping it on the straight and the wet, on the wet tire. But they had nothing to lose by that strategy. Those two teams have finished 14th and 15th enough times this season to last a lifetime. In the case of Sauber, obviously it's more nerve-wracking. I would say it's more nerve-wracking for them, obviously, because they're trying to avoid a second pointless season in 3 years. And the thing is, in 2014, Sauber, pointless for the first time, made the Grand Prix debut in 1993, never gone a full season without a point. This season, they were pointless and were still bottom of the championship. They were not last in the championship in 2014. So it was even worse. So for them to get anything, and Felipe Nasr, when Nasr was running up in 6th place, they would have gone ahead. If he kept that position, they would have gone ahead of Manna and Renault.
Yeah, they would have done. Yeah.
Eventually, Hulkenberg passed them, and I thought, well, he doesn't know it yet, but Hulkenberg's just put Renault ahead of Sauber, and Renault's his team next year. So he's already working for them. He hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, you find that sometimes with drivers, don't you? Go into other teams that they already help out the team that they tend to be going to. With the silly season as well, the driver market moving around a bit. Is there anything else you think? Any more surprises left in store? Do you think?
Yes, I think the dogs are going to start barking. I think obviously. Hello. Maybe they. I think they're watching the Verstappen thing again.
He clearly thinks he's got a sniff of the
It's an amazing pass to Sergio Perez, isn't it? Yes, fantastic. Sorry, what was the question again? I've forgotten.
Just about the silly season, the driver market. Do you think there are any more surprises? Is it teams more likely the seats that are left open? Do you think they're going to play it more sensibly, or is there sort of any sort of science to look at it when teams tend to choose their drivers, or is it just luck of the draw?
Obviously, it's a function of who's available, who you're likely to get, who has money, and if you need money. What have we got left? We've got open seats at Manor and Sauber.
Yeah.
Essentially. Have I missed anybody else? Is there anybody else? Is there any other team that's got an opening? I think that's it.
No, it is just those two now.
Yeah, that's it now.
Yeah. Well, Manor obviously. Manor obviously have got some deal with Mercedes going on. That's why we've got Wehrlein and Ocon in that. So one would assume that Wehrlein will be in for a second season there. He's probably done enough to justify it.
Yeah.
Who gets that second drive? I don't know. I've heard Gutierrez's name thrown into the mix. Not really. Gutierrez has properly blotted his copybook at Haas. There's a lot of. I'm privy to a few insider discussions there, and let's say I don't think they'd be sending him a Christmas card this year.
No. I saw on TV the slight fracas between him and Günther Steiner, and that looked quite interesting, didn't it? Yeah,
I'd heard on my headset he was given the team a volley, the car not working properly, and he was effing and blinding at the team. He wasn't effing and blinding at the situation. It's a slightly thing. When you're aiming it at the team, telling them to sort the F out and blah blah blah.
The crazy thing.
Eventually, sorry, mate. You're going to take umbrage with that eventually, and just say, "Hang on a minute, what about you? Well, you're the one touring around in 14th all the time."
The crazy thing with him is he's he's had his opportunities in Formula 1 with Sauber and stuff like that years ago, and he's had one 7th place finish, I think. Is that his
Yeah.
highest finish?
Yeah, and it's also and that's his only points finish. Japanese Grand Prix 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gutierrez is one of those drivers who is outstanding with less horsepower. He was a terrific driver in GP3, and we all thought, and also Formula BMW. You know, he thought, "Wow, this kid's going to go far." He got to GP2. GP2 found him out a little bit. He moved up into horsepower. You know, when he's dealing with 600 horsepower, suddenly he didn't, and he was racing for ART, the top team in GP2 history. And I didn't think it was all that good. And I thought, he looks like one of those drivers, because certain drivers do better the more power you give them. Damon Hill's a good example. You know, the higher he got up the totem pole, the better he was. Maybe even Nigel Mansell, you know, similar. And some drivers go the other way. Some drivers are just imperious in the lower formula and just cannot figure it out at the top level. Jan Magnussen, probably the best case in point. I think he had 14 wins, I think it was, in British F3 in '94. Came to F1 and he just, Barrichello blew him away.
Yeah.
So it cuts both ways. I think Gutierrez falls into that category of, for whatever reason, he can't quite get it together. And it's not that the talent's not there, because he has out-qualified Grosjean a number of times this year, and he keeps finishing 11th. No one's finished 11th more times than Gutierrez in a season. So there's a certain misfortune there. You know, it's a bit unlucky that he keeps falling one place short of the points. But you know, ultimately, it's the results you're judged upon. And if you've still got 0 and your teammate's got 30, you're going to look at it and think, well, what's he playing at? Yeah. And as you say, it's not like he hasn't had opportunities here.
Well, there was a thing. I remember when he first came into Formula One, and I remember seeing an interview with him just after when he was still racing in GP2, I think. And someone said, like, "Are you ready for Formula One?" He said, "I don't know. I guess I'll see you in Australia." And I thought it was so weird for a Formula One driver, because every Formula One driver that comes into Formula One basically thinks they're going to win a world championship in the first car they're put into, you know. And he just, for someone to say, "I don't know if I'm ready yet," made me think, well, maybe you're not ready at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's a reasonable thought. I mean, it could have just been false modesty, and he was actually thinking, "Yeah, I'm going to wax them. It's going to be brilliant. Watch this."
Yeah.
But he didn't want to say that. He didn't want to say that because it would seem horribly presumptuous.
They rarely tend to be the most modest of individuals, though, do they? Racing drivers.
No. You know, it's obviously it's got to be in their nature. It's a bit like being a modest boxer. Isn't it? So, I'm not sure I'm going to knock out my opponent, but let's hope it's a jolly good old bout anyway. You're never going to get that from a boxer. So, and it's the same thing in a team. It's the same thing. You're never going to get Lewis Hamilton say, "Well, I hope Nico beats me this year." You know,
No, exactly.
it's words that are never likely to be spoken.
Just saying about your thoughts on the World Championship. Do you think it's a fair outcome if Nico Rosberg wins the title fair and square in Abu Dhabi, or do you think it's more down to the fact that Lewis hasn't been able to take the fight to Nico this year? I mean, it's been a Mercedes World Championship year again, but it's just your thoughts on the championship fight between the two drivers, really.
Well, first off, I've always thought Nico Rosberg was an underrated driver. To come into Formula One the way he did, I mean, he was a GP2 champion, and that was a GP2 field that featured Carvalinen and Piquet. It wasn't like a bunch of no-names.
Yeah.
And I had Pantano in there as well, who was already raced F1. He came into F1, scored points in his first race, set the fastest lap. He was the youngest man to set the fastest lap in Formula One history until yesterday.
Oh, right.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I saw that stat somewhere on Twitter. I can't remember who put that up there.
Yes, I don't know what you're talking about there. Nothing to do with me, Governor. He qualified third. Second Grand Prix in Malaysia, qualified third on the grid. And you're just thinking, wow, this guy's moving. This is brilliant. When he joined Mercedes and he was paired with Michael Schumacher, every time, and I interviewed Michael about this, every time Nico beat Michael, it was always, what's wrong with Michael? It was never what's right about Nico.
Yeah.
And that perception dogged Schumacher until his retirement. So it reminds me. I remember in 1988 when Nelson Piquet was at Lotus, he joined Lotus as the reigning world champion. He was paired up with Satoru Nakajima, and when Nakajima ever got close to Nelson Piquet, no one ever congratulated Nakajima. It was always, what the hell's wrong with Nelson Piquet if he can't, if he's Nakajima's within 0.3 of a second? I mean, what is going on? It was never a case of, wow, Naka-san's superb. Oh, yeah. No, it's not. Again, same thing. It's like, oh, Nico's just beaten Michael again. My God, what's happened to Michael? He must be terrible. Why doesn't he just retire? Now, some of that may be true, but I would also say, similarly, that there are occasions where Nico outclasses Lewis, but it tends to only happen when he beats him in qualifying. Now, if you can beat Lewis Hamilton in qualifying, you must be pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at Lewis now, midway, at some point next season, he's going to be past Ayrton Senna's career poles. He's going to be past Michael Schumacher's career poles. So I think we can take from that Lewis is a bit handy. So if you can beat Lewis as a teammate in the same car, you must be moving it as well. I don't like the pernicious idea that Nico is just he's in the best car. Yeah, like every single guy who's ever won the championship ever.
Yeah.
And he's beating somebody who we would rank among the all-time greats of the sport. Yeah. Now I appreciate he's had unreliability, so on and so on. Nigel Mansell had unreliability in '87 that led in Nelson Piquet to win the title. You could argue the same of Senna in '89 when Prost won it. There are many other examples of drivers losing titles on unreliability, misfortune, call it what you will. Kimi Räikkönen in 2005, another good example. Kimi was the fastest driver in '05, didn't win the title. Even Lewis in '07. You would say, well, Räikkönen kind of sneaked it in '07.
Yeah.
Really, it's gone to McLaren, but it didn't. That's life. So if Rosberg does win this title, I think he's a deserving champion. I think that people will look upon him as saying, his title will probably fall in there with titles won by people like maybe Damon Hill, something like that, where yes, he's a world champion, and that's amazing. That's an amazing achievement, and you can't dispute that. But at the same time, if you're going into a fight, you'd take Ayrton Senna in there. You know what I mean? You'd have Damon in the corner, but you'd take Ayrton, or so it'd be like that kind of thing. It's like, well, that's still a pretty stout lineup, and that's what Nico might always be. But that's still something to be as well. And one of the things I was looking for yesterday, and I appreciate the circumstances means that he wasn't able to really do this, or didn't have to do this, was if he had beaten Lewis yesterday in heavy rain, in a straight fight, to win the title, because he would have done it if he'd won the race.
Yeah, he would have done, yeah.
That would have put the issue to bed. That would have been, well, he's just done something that we didn't think he was capable of doing. The naysayers have been shoved out the door. He's just beaten Lewis in the wet. That's it. That's our man. And he didn't do that. He was like, he was never close to Lewis all day. He was 11 seconds behind at the end. But it's perfectly possible that he could have been a lot closer, but didn't feel the need to risk it because he knew that second was good enough.
He's playing it a little bit like Alain Prost would do.
Very similar. Yeah. And Alain Prost, of course, Alain Prost's reputation was damaged in 1993. And you would think that was a strange thing to say because he won the championship. But a lot of the time, I think Alain was on cruise control, knowing full well that he had a car that was better than everybody else. Mm-hmm. And his teammate was Damon, who, for all intents and purposes, was a rookie driver, getting a big, big break, and was never going to upset the apple cart by, punting Prost out the way to win the race, for instance. So because Prost was on cruise control, I think, and that was his last season, of course, his reputation was unfairly tarnished by that. And Rosberg's reputation might be tarnished in the same way, where it looks like he's cruising around to do enough. People want to see the Sennas of this world. They want to see the Schumachers, making up 20 seconds in 18 laps and getting out ahead at the last pit stop, and this amazing. Yeah. Or the Verstappen situation yesterday. Where you think, wow, that was unbelievable. I can't believe that's just happened. And we haven't had that from Nico, I'd say, in a while. Not something where you've just been left breathless at the end, thinking, what? I don't smoke. I definitely need a cigarette after that. That was amazing.
Yeah. Do you think with like one thing that has been good about Nico this year has been his mentality. You know, it's when Lewis broke that gap down to him and then went ahead. But if he's in a similar position as what he was this weekend at Abu Dhabi, and he knows he has to finish on the podium, and let's say he's got a Red Bull or something attacking him or something, do you think he's got the mentality where he could crack, or do you think he's going to be able to keep this composure that he's kept so far through the season?
He's untested in that environment, I would say. I can't recall a situation where he's had to keep someone behind him.
No.
For the purposes. Well, maybe Interlagos 2014, when he had to win to keep the championship alive. I think it was.
Yeah, he did to take it to double points Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, and as I recall, he led every session that weekend. So he knew if Lewis gets past me, it's over, and he led every single session. I think that's right. I'm going off the top of my head here. So
you're the man to trust.
Yeah, that's the closest example I can bring. But also, this is slightly outdated. If you think of GP2 in 2005, the first half of the season, if you go and have a look, was dominated by Heikki Kovalainen. Yeah. Rosberg's season only really started at Magny Cours. So you're thinking, like, you get into July and he's not really done anything. And suddenly, he was away and running, and he was clearly the best driver in the second half of that season. Mm. So, I don't know what it's going to be like yet, but I don't think a lot of that mental stuff, like last season, Nico's he's mentally he's just not happening. He knows he's never going to be good enough. You know, I hear a lot of journalists say that, like, he clearly knows he's not going to be good enough, and you can tell in his eyes. That's nonsense. You're just making things up. Yeah. You don't know that. He might have just had a blazing round with the missus. You don't know what's going on. You have no idea. That's just you're making stuff up. Judge it by the racetrack. Yes, he had his ass handed to him by Hamilton last year. Okay, well, beaten by a better guy. If this season he might be, if you ask him, he might say, "Well, I feel the same as I did last season." Yeah. Journalists think they're psychologists and they're not. It's nonsense. Sorry. Well, sorry. That's side rant. I know, but I hate when I hear that. I hate you have no idea what's going on in his head. He might be having a great day, and you say, "Oh, he looks absolutely finished."
Yeah, and it might. It's also probably the 15th time that he's been asked that question within the last 20 minutes.
Exactly, and not only that, but it could be a completely moronic, insipid question, like, "Oh, you've just you've just completely blown your chances, taken out your teammate, annoyed half the field, and you got like $100,000 penalty and a 2-race ban. How do you feel?"
Yeah. There's always that. He's your Scottish guy from Sky. There's always a chance that Craig Slater's interviewed them beforehand.
Hey, I work for Sky Sports. No comment on that.
Will I have to edit that bit out?
That's not going to make the final edit. I can see that's that. Yep, definitely put a line through that.
Yeah, that's right. The traditional way on this show of censoring things is by playing a snippet of Jacques Villeneuve's "Don't Say It, Baby."
Yeah, from that lovely album that he did a few years back.
Funny you should bring that up, because Adam Cooper tweeted yesterday that you see all those awnings they had up on the starting grid.
Yeah.
It said it looked like I think he said it looked like a jumble sale, and you expected to go out there and find a load of people selling LPs from the boot of a car. And I said, well, what's Jacques Villeneuve doing out there selling his album? Is that what it is?
Don't joke. That's how Mana's going to start doing some funding soon.
I would just like to point out that I may play the Jacques Villeneuve track, but I didn't buy the album. I found a clip of it on YouTube.
Cheapskate, honestly.
Well, I couldn't find it on sale anywhere.
You know that Jacques Villeneuve's down to his last $87 million. I mean,
yeah.
How is he going to survive?
Oh, my heart bleeds for him. He'll just have to open another restaurant.
It's just one of those albums that went straight to BitTorrent.
Well, I don't. Side note, there's nothing to do with Formula 1. I don't blame the guy for writing and recording stuff. I love writing and recording music. It's just as a public figure, when you're good at something else, people are already ganging up to beat up on you because it's like, oh, you think you're good at two things. I might have this conversation with my girlfriend about Lewis Hamilton, because you hear about Lewis being in a recording studio and he's hanging out with Drake and all this lot. Yes. And I say to her, she says, "Oh, he thinks he's a rapper, and he's probably terrible." And I said, "Yeah, what if he's good?
Yeah.
What if you listen to it and you think, my God, this guy's really good? You don't know, you haven't heard it, so how can you judge it?"
The way it's going, we're not going to get the chance to find out for about another 5 years because he keeps threatening to release something and then stops talking about it for another 6 months.
Yeah.
Right, and I know what that is because he's thinking, well, if I put this out, people are just going to say it's shockingly poor, So don't blame him for that.
Jack Villeneuve to beat though. No.
Maybe so, but it's a big hit on your reputation. If you're only as good as the last. If he sticks out, it's one thing if he spins out of a race or something, because people think, oh well, that happens. He's a racing driver. But it's another thing if you try and branch out into something else and it goes really badly wrong, because then you just a bit of a knobhead, to be frank.
Don't know. Is it if the benchmark, like the low benchmark, can be Eddie Jordan's drumming, so he'll be fine.
Yeah, I played drums for like 23 years. Eddie, if you're listening, listen. You gotta get some lessons. All right, you're hanging out with Nick Mason in the Caribbean. Just have a word. That's all I'm saying. It's not that difficult. If I can play the drums, it's not that difficult. Right?
I didn't realise you were a drummer.
I am. Yeah, that's my thing. I've played on stage in California. I can always tell people that. It's pretty cool.
Cool, good stuff. Just give us an insight into sort of what you do during the races. How many of you are there, sort of people working for you or with you, sort of get that information out to the broadcasters and crunching numbers and strategies sort of whilst the race is going on, so that the viewers, when they hear the stats coming from you, what's involved with that really?
Well, it is just me. So I write. Obviously, what I write. I mean, I write like 20 odd pages of statistics to give to the broadcasters in advance of the race, so that they can they can do their own research over and above that, or based upon that. Because it doesn't just shape what's commentated upon. It might shape what's the questions that are asked in press conferences, graphics, articles that we might run in the pre-race show, all this sort of stuff. There's the streaming service. I put out there's a streaming feed of statistics which the commentators access in the booth while they're on the. So instead of the old-fashioned way of having a guy standing next to them handing them post-it notes, it just appears on a screen in front of them. So if Lewis Hamilton goes upside down backwards through a fence in a blaze of fire, we can mention and that's his first ever retirement at this track. Things like that. So that all happens. In the case of the American broadcaster, I mean, I'm always working with the American broadcaster first and foremost, which is NBC Sports.
Yeah.
And I will do all of that. I'm essentially a race strategist because I have all of the feeds in front of me. So I have like 9 or 10 screens in front of me. It's virtually the same as being on the pit wall. And I have all of the data that we've compiled over the weekend with tires and what have you. And I'm advising the guys on the air how the strategy is playing out. What you're trying to do with it is anticipate what's going to happen, not react to it. It's not like, oh, look, the Red Bull's just pitted. That's interesting. What you're trying to say. Yeah, you're trying to say, well, look, if they pit now, that's not going to work for them because the pit stop delta is 22 seconds. They're going to drop. If they pit now, they're going to drop in behind Hülkenberg and Perez, and then they're going to be stuck because they've got to pass those guys, and they're not going to make the undercut, blah, blah, blah. So you're trying to talk them through the decision-making process while you're on the air. And that's obviously a moving target. It takes quite a lot of experience to fully understand all of it. It's a bit like playing chess. I know Max Mosley used that phrase himself. It is really like playing chess. It's easy to tell you how the pieces move around the board, but to get the best out of all of it, it takes really years. And I'm still learning. Things will still happen from a strategy point of view that I've never seen before, and it plays out, and you bear it in mind subsequently because the technical regulations change, the compounds change, the track surfaces change. So it's not like you just learn and learn and learn and then that's it. Okay, the same situation, the same science applies on every track. It's always moving around. But when it comes to stats and everything, I provide all that to 21 broadcasters. So
Wow.
if you're watching a broadcast in America, you hear the stats that I've written. But also, if you're watching the broadcast in Great Britain, no matter what channel you're on, and that includes the radio. If you're watching it in Germany, you'll hear my stuff spoken in German by the commentators. Same in Austria. You'll hear it in Fuji Television in Japan. You know, there's a lot of places where essentially it's all coming from a central source, which is me sitting there daydreaming and thinking, this is a good stat. Let's do this.
How did you start doing this? I mean, I take it maths has always been something you've been keen on, by the sounds of it.
Well, I was good at maths at school, but I didn't really pay much attention at school. I was too busy staring out the window, listening to music and drawing on my rough book. And when I did draw on my rough book, it was Formula One cars. It was the only thing I was ever really interested in pursuing as a sort of as a hobby. You know, other than playing. I love playing drums as well, but you know, I wasn't I'm not an aficionado of drums in the way I couldn't tell you like, this is what happened at the 74, you know, whatever. The way I got into it was I was seeing a girl coincidentally here in Arizona. I'm currently talking to you from Arizona, and I needed a job that allowed me freedom of movement. You know, be a freelancer, so I could see her because I was living in the UK at the time. So I called the broadcaster in the US. Cold called them. Didn't know anybody. Cold called them. I was Speed Channel at the time. And it took about 4 phone calls to get through to the Formula One producer, and I didn't know his name. And I left him a voicemail along the lines of, "This is the most important day of your life, sir. I'm in much fanfare. I have finally got through to you, and you must hire me because I'm great." Now, in truth, I had no experience in journalism, no experience in television, and I knew nobody in Formula One. But I had been watching it for the last 15 years. My first race was Brazil '87 when I was 6 years old. I've only missed 2 races since then.
Jeez.
Wow.
And I said, "I think I can do a job for you." I put the phone down. I thought, he'll never call back. But 2 days later, he calls back. And he asked me, "Could you prepare something to show us by tomorrow?" "Sure, no problem." Put the phone down. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I have no idea. I don't know what standard he's expecting. I'm just making this up. So I did that, and then I requested a copy of what they were using, which they faxed to me. That's how long ago this was.
Yeah.
Back in 2003, when people had fax machines, and I sent it back to him an hour later with all the mistakes in it. There was like 25 errors highlighted, and I written in the correct answer. I sent it back promptly because I wanted to see, I can correct this on the fly. It's not like I have to go and research it.
Yeah.
And on that basis, he hired me for 2003, and I thought, well, this is good. I'm not getting paid to watch Formula One races. That's it didn't matter to me that it was virtually no money at all because I just thought, well, brilliant, I'm in. I'm getting paid to watch Formula One races.
Yeah,
No longer can anyone stand there and say, "Are you going to watch this all day when we're having a family get together?" Yes, it's my job. So that was the big break for me. And then halfway through the first season in '03, I suddenly realized, well, look, if they need the service I'm providing, every other broadcaster needs it too. We're all watching the same race. We're all watching the same pictures. So it's the same thing again and again. So in 2004, I started offering syndication, and it took off from there. It took a while to crack the British market. The BBC didn't finally pick me up. ITV never touched me. The BBC eventually did, and it was. I'm gonna stand by, guys. I'm gonna name drop here. Big thanks to David Coulthard, who argued the case on my behalf, put the idea to Martin Brundle, and the pair of them were suitably convinced that I was the guy. So in I was at the BBC. No sooner did that happen that they split the rights off to Sky. I thought, well, I've just spent like nearly a decade trying to get a deal, and suddenly someone else is doing it. And then thankfully Martin went off to Sky, and he said, "Can you provide us as well?" "Oh, certainly, Mr. Brundle, that'd be great." It's gone quite well, but it'll be a long time. It's 13 years working in it now. It's not like it's not anything that's happened overnight. And no. I've made plenty of mistakes. Trust me, I am far from infallible. I've had a few howlers go on the air in my time. Never let a statistician convince you that he is infallible. They're lying to you.
Go on, Sean. You're going to have to let us know at least one. Give us one example of something that you've let go out on the air that might not have been the truth.
Well, it probably seemed relatively minor to you, but when we opened to Michael Schumacher at Japan '04, saying, "Oh, you're at the Grand Slam again, Michael. You're one from pole, fastest lap, led every lap," and he wish he hadn't done. And that's in the unilateral. So that's the thing. That's the interview you're watching after the race with the top 3 drivers. And that's the big one, and it's my stat, and it's completely wrong. And I'm thinking, oh bollocks, what have I just done there?
To be fair, if there was any that's going to slip under the radar, it's saying Schumacher won a load of stuff.
Yeah. I gave, when Will Buxton did the unilateral a few years ago, I gave him a completely wrong stat, which was really embarrassing because I've worked with Will all the time. So that stuff happens.
He seems really good, him. I wish we had him up more on British TV.
I tell you what, Will, I've never let him forget that I had a role in him being hired. Because before Will was on television in the US, he was the GP2 World Feed commentator, which he continued to be.
Yeah.
And when Peter Windsor, who was our pit lane guy, was leaving for the, as it turned out, ill-fated USF1, we needed a replacement pit reporter. And the usual names were banded around. But I said to our bosses, and actually to the same boss who had hired me 6 years earlier, I said, have you heard this guy who does the GP2 commentary, Will someone? He's amazing. He makes the GP2 race sound, he's like proper Murray Walker. He thinks Fernandino Monfredini going down the inside of Jimmy Bruni for 12th place, like on lap 12, is the greatest pass we might have ever seen. Let's have a look then, And you don't even have to like GP2, but he made it sound so much more exciting.
Yeah.
I said, well, why don't we get him? He's young. He looks good on camera. He knows the subject matter because if he's hanging around GP2 paddocks, he knows the subject matter.
Yeah.
With the added bonus that he's building the relationships with drivers who will become F1 drivers. So he's got the advantage of having those relationships there already. So we took him on. It wasn't me who dictated we take him on, but I was glad that we were willing to get. To go for the unorthodox. So that Will was a gamble at that time, which he's paid back handsomely since then. Because I think Will Buxton's one of the best writers. When you read his blog and stuff, I thought he's just got a great turn of phrase, and and not only that, but I talked to him on headset during the race, and he's got a great handle on race strategy. He's got a great eye for understanding what might be an unorthodox strategy, and sometimes I need that. So sometimes when he comes up to me and says, Sean, do you think it's possible, can Alonso run to the end on this set, blah, blah, blah. And I'll think, I hadn't thought of that. But now you mentioned it, you're dead on. Yeah, definitely say that on the air. I reckon I'd back you on that one. We have that kind of conversation. So he's got a great, he has that great turn of phrase. He's got the great, he's got the big relationships. He's got the understanding of race strategy, which is, there are many facets to his ability. But don't tell him I said that.
If we ever get him as a guest, we will not mention it. I promise.
Yeah.
I dare say, if you ask him what he thinks of me, you won't get quite such a positive answer. I'm just saying.
With the rule shake-up and stuff next year, with bigger tyres and more aero and stuff, is there anything that you do to sort of prep yourself for how things are going to change, or have you any sort of idea of how you think things are going to change?
You mean in terms of the competitive order?
Well, competitive order and the way race strategy is going to go for them.
Yeah. I don't think. No, I wouldn't say there was. I think it's easier just to let it play out initially, because I don't think the teams fully appreciate what will happen until we've done a race or two. Mm-hmm. That usually tends to be the case. I mean, the teams obviously can test until they're blue in the face, but in a race situation, you don't know how it's all going to interact, and you just don't know. It would be foolish to make assumptions. As for the competitive order, and as even for the new regulations, the new regulations, wider car, wider rear tire, wanted both of those for years. Don't know why. I have no idea why we made the cars narrow in '98. It was so obvious that was not going to improve the racing. It made the cars look shockingly bad. I'm glad we're getting back to a proper size Formula One car. Same with the rear tire. Rear tire was narrowed in '93. The racing has never been as good ever since then because they don't have the rear tire to lean on when they run out of aero. We're getting back to that. Didn't want the front tire widened because now it looks like it's sort of a slightly obese-looking Formula One car. The narrow front tire looked fine. I don't know why they've done that, but okay, fair enough. I'll take it. Wider front wing, definitely don't need that. Terrible move. I think the FIA are actually just trying to cover the front tire so that you don't, so you have some warning that you're about to hit the rear tire of another car.
Do you think that's gonna lead to like it being harder to follow now?
Well, with any increase in downforce, there is a consequent penalty in terms of the wash off of the car in front.
Yeah,
obviously. And I don't speak as an absolute expert. I did do 2 years of aeronautics on and off at university, but it doesn't necessarily make me an expert because I basically buggered off to do Formula One. I didn't actually finish my degree. But it will make it more difficult. But of course, there is also more mechanical grip. I would rather have just taken the mechanical grip and more horsepower and not had more downforce. See, consider it like this. If speed is the only determining factor in whether Formula One is exciting, then what we have right now should be as exciting as any race there has ever been in Formula One history. Mm-hmm. When you've got Daniel Ricciardo going around in qualifying like 8 seconds quicker than Ayrton Senna did it in 1990.
Yeah.
Well, would you necessarily look upon Ricciardo's pole lap, with all due respect to him, as being as memorable as Senna's pole lap? No. And Senna was way slower. Here's another thought. In the 85 Australian Grand Prix, Ayrton Senna was not again on pole. Lotus Renault, qualifying booth, qualifying tyres. His time, pole in 85, and if you watch that lap, and you can watch it on YouTube, it's very easy to find it, an amazing lap. Would have put him last on the grid in the 1993 race, behind Pedro Lamy. So going by that, Pedro Lamy is a more exciting driver to watch than Ayrton Senna, because his 93 Lotus was quicker than the 85 Lotus, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't go, therefore, that pure lap time is the only determining factor in whether Formula One is exciting.
No, not at all.
There's a lot of other things that go into it. And I understand that people say, look, it's way too slow. They were quicker 10 years ago and everything. But yeah, of course. And if we keep, if they kept the regulations as they are, they'd be another 15 seconds quicker than that now. At some point, you've got to rein it in, because you're going to say, look, they're going to be too quick for the racetracks. The crowd's going to be so far away that it's going to be ridiculous.
It's an evolving sport as well, isn't it? The changing of the rules is part of the whole DNA of the sport, of with it being a prototype series.
Yeah, and Formula One has done a very bad job of promoting just how good the technology is. In the entire history of Formula One, before this season, we'd had, hang on, I can count off the top of my head here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we had 4 races. There's 1, 2, 3. Hang on a minute.
What you need a man that feeds your stats.
Yeah, exactly. We had 5 races in Formula One history that had never had a retirement. And so that's Netherlands 1961, USA 05, only 6 cars, Italy 05, Europe 2011, and Japan 2015. This season, we've had 2 races this season where we've had every car finish, China and Japan. And in Mexico, Pascal Wehrlein was out at the first corner, and he was the only retirement. So we nearly had 3 races this season where every car finished. So after having 5 races in history where it had happened, we nearly had 3 this season. And people think that this engine formula is incredibly complicated, and it's just wow. It's you can't trust it. The statistics don't bear that out. The statistics say this is the most reliable era we have ever seen in Formula One history, and to have made an incredibly complicated engine that reliable is astounding. And to to do it on 35% less fuel than we were using in the past, and to go almost as quick, the technology is astonishing. And Formula One, as always, does a terrible job. It always shoots itself in the foot from a PR standpoint, because there is no PR. Formula One doesn't have a PR office in the same way that the Premier League does, or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
As far as they're concerned, it's up to the driver, the teams, and the tracks to promote things, because Bernie's business model is 40 years out of date. But if they promoted that, people will go, "Wow, that's amazing! Give us a bit of that."
I thought that with the noise problem, when everyone was saying Formula One cars were too quiet, instead of saying like what a good job they were doing, just making these engines as efficient and as fast as they were.
Yeah. Well, here's the counterpoint to that. Again, referring back to the whole, just quicker is not automatically more exciting. I've never hidden my disdain of the way the cars sound. They don't sound like Formula One cars. They hardly sound like lawnmowers. And my garden would be overgrown if my lawnmower sounded like this, because I wouldn't bother going out there.
That's my excuse. It's my excuse too. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, there's no satisfaction when a car goes past. You listen to a 1991 McLaren 3.5 litre Honda V12, and you just think, yes, I'm horny. Just give me something to like dry hump right now. You don't get that with a current Formula One car. It just goes, and you just think, wow, what a testament to modern day efficiency that was. It's as I've said many times, Formula One should be like dating a stripper. It's like incredibly fantastically horny and sexy and totally messed up in the head and just bonkers. And right now it's a little bit librarian. It's just a little bit safe and a little bit kind of it's a bit straight laced, and I don't.
It's wet. We don't want to go out when it's too wet because something might happen.
Yeah, I once described. I remember my favorite definition that I've ever made about a car. Somebody asked me to talk about 1966 Ferrari 312.
Yeah.
If you can picture that car. The last Ferrari before wings came along and everything. Lorenzo Bandini, Chris Amon, et al. And I described it as Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. I said, this is the car that will give you the best sex of your life and kill you at the end. and that made it a much more exciting proposition to me than the whole just get it over with and get off me sort of thing, which is what I feel like a modern day F1 car is. It's just like, just don't touch me.
Lie back and think of England.
Yeah, and that it shouldn't be like that. And with Formula E, Formula E has been subject to a lot of ridicule. I think a lot of people in Formula One are very, very derogatory about Formula E because they're very aloof, and they look down at those funny little kids with their Formula E cars. Formula E will be the savior of Formula One as a sexy sport, because as Formula E battery technology comes along and everything, that's where the new technology can flourish, and that should allow Formula One to get back to being politically incorrect, if you will. It can get, Formula One could get back to being old school V12s, because if Formula E gets more and more popular, it'll be on the basis of it being the new technology. But the old technology will still grab you in the gut the same way.
That can get back to being like the show sort of thing.
Exactly. And there are lots of people who will go and see a Led Zeppelin gig before they'll go and see a Jess Glynne gig. You know? Mm-hmm. That audience still exists. And to say that it's all old hat and it's like the dinosaurs. Yeah, well, you know what? A lot of people like frigging dinosaurs as well.
We're going back to that rock festival I've just spent all weekend at, where the headliners were Ugly Kid Joe and Rat.
Right, well, there we go. That's exactly what I'm getting at. So people will go to that stuff. It's not. It's short-sighted to say that audience does not exist. And every time the problem is every time you see an old Formula One car being paraded, like a few weeks ago when we had, I can't remember who's in the car now. Well, I remember last season at Suzuka when Gerhard Berger was in the McLaren Honda, and I think he also drove the '88 Ferrari. And you're just thinking, wow, this is amazing. Everybody stops what they're doing to watch and listen especially. Yeah. It's so visceral and it grabs you in the way that the cars don't today. But of course, again, the cars today miles quicker. I mean, they blow it out the weeds. It's not even it would be total. That the McLaren would be hopelessly outclassed. But that's not the point. It's the way it makes you feel, you know. And hopefully Formula E gets to that point once they get rid of the driver changes and everything and all that nonsense. It will Formula One will look upon itself and say, look, we're kind of why are we doing this to ourselves? You know,
pull their socks up a little bit and get on with it.
Let's get back to the guitar solos and everything, and enough with the David Guetta. Let's get back to Led Zeppelin. You know?
Yeah.
That is probably the best analogy of it I think I've heard. You perfectly hit the nail on the head. As an old school rock fan, I'd agree even more. So,
yeah, well, it's something I think about a lot because I've seen a lot of Formula One racing in my time, and I've said to people, if I was 6 years old today, I was 6 years old when I first started watching Formula One in '87. If I was 6 years old now, I wouldn't find Formula One very interesting, and here's the reason why. In 2016, we have guys jumping out of capsules and parachute jumping from 150,000 feet. We have people in the Olympics doing slope style, doing 720 triple twisting somersaults on skis. You have Red Bull doing just ridiculous things with, you know, like air races and all this stuff.
And people jumping out of spaceships.
Yeah, you have the paradigm of what is considered extreme sport has moved on, you know, and Formula One is still stuck in a box a bit. And that I've often said, if Dietrich Mateschitz wanted to take over the championship, it might be one of the best things that ever happened. If you look at anything Red Bull have ever done, they always do it full on, turned up to 11
to the extreme.
and Formula One should be that. And of course, Bernie himself was an ex-team owner at Brabham. So if Mateschitz decided tomorrow, I'm going to buy Formula One. I mean, it's not going to happen now, obviously, with the Liberty thing. But if it was the Red Bull Formula One World Championship, I guarantee you that it would be far better promoted. It would just be so well put together, and it would be so in touch with its target audience. If Chase Carey is coming in here as a US TV executive, he should have a better idea of what the audience want. You know, Bernie's been amazing for the sport, and politically, there's no finer operator in the sport. But his practices belong to an audience of the over 60s. He's never going to get the audience that watches slope style. He's never going to get the audience that goes to the Red Bull air races. Those type of people. And I hope Chase Carey and Liberty get that. I hope they can exploit that because, I mean, Bernie is right that young people don't have any money. I get that. They can't afford Rolexes and they don't do investment banking at Credit Suisse. I get that. But the young people of today will be doing that in the future. And it would be good to catch them now.
Yeah. Captivate that audience before it has a chance to slip away into something else that isn't Formula One.
Right. Exactly. And, you know, we're on the cusp of having automated cars. People are going to grow up never having driven a car.
Well, isn't there an automated race championship starting next year?
So the next year, support series to Formula E, isn't it?
Yeah. Again, you know, that lends to the Formula E argument that I mentioned earlier. That Formula E can be the savior of Formula One because that can be. Eventually, we'll all be driving around in battery-powered cars that are automated. So Formula E should cover that emerging market, and Formula One should stick to being Formula One, which is the best drivers in the world pushing the boundaries of really what they should be doing.
Yeah.
You know, you never look at a MotoGP race and think, well, that's a bit dull, isn't it? I never watched a MotoGP race and thought, well, those guys, they're all terribly sensible, aren't they? You know?
Yeah. I mean,
they also the right things corporately, and they have decent haircuts. Jolly good.
I mean, that's that then is the danger aspect, isn't it? And how do you feel about the halo and stuff like that? You know, and the sport becoming more like safer.
I don't think the halo thing. Alex Wirtz convinced me on this one because for years I was against the halo. I just thought it's not Formula One. And Alex Wirtz said, well, what about seatbelts? What about full face helmets? You know, they weren't Formula One once upon a time.
Yeah.
Do you think they're not Formula One? I thought, do you know what? You're right. I'm being far too short-sighted. I'm guilty of saying Formula One has to be the thing that it was on the day I first saw it, and that's very dangerous.
It is
because as you said, technology moves on. Would a Halo? Now, there's a different argument about would a Halo actually save a life and does it work? Blah blah blah. But I don't think we should stop trying.
Yeah. My thought with the Halo is that maybe it might be a half step where instead of thinking about something like a Halo, they should just put all their effort into working out how they would handle closed cockpits, because I think that's the way it's going to go eventually. So they should just go for it now rather than just let it be an inevitable end to it. Yeah.
I mean, even 20 years ago, drivers' shoulders stuck out at the top of the car. It's unthinkable.
Yeah.
And normally, once you've seen enough Formula One seasons, when there's a big set of reg changes, like the car changes its appearance noticeably, you've forgotten about it by the third round.
Yeah.
The first couple of races, you're thinking, what the hell? It just looks, it's awful. I can't get used to it.
Well,
and then,
sorry.
a month into it, you're just like, oh, whatever. It just looks the same as always.
Well, even back when Hill was in the Arrows, like he used to sit very high up in that car, and you could see his shoulders in there, and that was what, 97.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it already had the head restraints put in. That was the main bit. If you go back as far as 94, you can actually see the logos on their arms sticking out.
Yeah,
which you just nowadays you think, what on earth was everybody thinking? It's clearly an accident waiting to happen.
Well, you remember when the hands devices came out, there was loads of drivers that didn't want to wear the hands device, wasn't there? Now it's just another part of a driver's helmet.
Yeah, exactly. It's you wouldn't even, no one even bats an eyelid at it now. It just looks like the normal equipment.
Yeah.
And that's that's what the Halo may ultimately become. Whether it works or not, that's a different topic of discussion. But we should never stop pushing the boundary of safety.
Yeah.
The only thing is that there does come a point. Eventually, it's always going to be dangerous one way or another. The only way to make it absolutely positive that it's not dangerous is to not do it.
Well, I suppose on the danger side of it as well is the getting hit with something, I suppose, isn't really what's going to damage you. It's that sudden stop at speed, which is always going to be the most dangerous part of Formula One, I'd have thought.
Yeah, when you say that, did you say the danger is not getting hit by something?
No, I realised the danger's there, but it's
right.
Even with a closed cockpit, it's that sudden stop at the end, which it's still a danger.
Well, there'll always be danger there one way or the other. I would always applaud the FIA for trying to push safety. I don't want cars to go back to being, 1967 spec, where you think, what the hell are you doing? The amount of conversations I've had with David Hobbs about this. David Hobbs, who made his Formula One debut in '67, raced until '64 in Formula One, did loads and loads of Le Mans, Daytona, Indianapolis 500s, basically sitting in a bath of petrol. Yeah. And you think, the other day, I was in the bar with him the other day, and I said, well, what was the biggest crash you ever had, Dave? And he said 71 Indy 500. They said, I can't remember the driver he mentioned, but the driver speared across and hit him, and they smashed into the wall. And he said, I jumped out of the car because I just had a pit stop, and we had 75 gallons of fuel in the car.
Jesus.
Whoa! 75 gallons of fuel. I jumped out of the car. I was stuck, in the middle of the start-finish straight. I jumped out of the car and ran to the pit wall to climb over, not realizing that AJ Foyt was coming barreling at me, and he missed me by about 6 feet.
God.
And you just think, what on earth are you doing out there, David? You're sitting in a canoe with 75 gallons of fuel.
Yeah, pretty
much.
It's
unthinkable now. They would never, no one would even ask them to do it now.
I can't remember the driver who, the ex-Formula One driver who said it, but he called them dry torpedoes. I think it may have been Sterling Moss. I can't remember who it was exactly, but yeah, I've heard that term before.
Yeah, it's just madness. I mean, it's just even David himself will say, "Yeah, I must have." It's amazing I got out of that alive. I mean, to use his own words, you say many of my friends from that era are 6 feet under.
Yeah.
Jimmy Clark being one. He was great friends with Jimmy Clark. It's not like he's speaking pithily about some lost generation that he never met. These are these guys who are his friends, and you just think, well, I mean, you guys were a breed apart. We think modern day F1 drivers are brave, and they are, as Sunday proved. But they were really, one error, they could be toast back then.
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy.
And we don't really want to go back to an era where that's a possibility at every race.
No, and imagine the Raikkonen situation from yesterday. We all held our breath, especially as Ocon came barreling out of the mist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was terrifying.
Was going to miss him. Imagine that in every single incident, because that's what it used to be like. Now we kind of look at it dismissively and think, oh well, he'll be fine, no problem. But yesterday was one of those moments where he'd realised, no, wait a minute, this is genuinely really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
Not only Raikkonen, but also Ericsson at the start of the pit lane there.
Yeah. I mean, it all looks well and good when it's going well and good. But as soon as something goes out of control or there's bad weather or anything, you realise, well, this is still pretty dangerous and we should still be trying to push safety. Safety is not a bad word.
No, not at all.
Not in the slightest.
No.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm sorry if we've kept you a bit long. I know you're training for triathlons at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah, one particular triathlon, the Ironman. I'm trying to train for
in Arizona
the
on
Ironman
Sunday, I believe.
Yep, it's going to be a long day at the office this Sunday. In fact, as soon as I get off of this, I've got to go off and go and run the part of the route. So I've got 10 miles of running in my in the next 2 hours of my life.
Ouch! And that's after a swim session just before you spoke to us.
Yeah, I got out of the lake this morning. Went out to Bartlett Lake, just acclimatized to cold water because we're not sure quite what the water temperature will be on Sunday. So you can't train. The sensation of being in open water is completely different to the sensation of being in a swimming pool. It's a bit like getting out of a touring car and going into a Formula One car. It's like, well, it's sort of the same, but it's
really.
not.
Yeah.
But not really. It's like, there's a crossover of skill set and muscle groups, but the actual sensation of doing it is far different.
I'm surprised you didn't have to go outside of Arizona to find yourself some cold water.
The thing is up in the mountains here, it does get quite cold. The water temperature gets cold. The actual temperature here, it's like 25 degrees Celsius here today.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. That's my perfect situation because I hate standing around freezing my arse off. I'm not one of those people who gets up at 5 a.m. and thinks, "Oh, I'm going to go for a run because it's freezing cold and it's good for the soul." No, bugger off.
Sounds like you've got the right idea, Sean. Well, best of luck with your triathlon on Sunday. I hope it goes to plan and that you have a very successful day.
Thank you very much. And if it doesn't go very well, at least I had a fantastic last interview.
That's great. Sean Kelly, Virtual Statsman, thank you for being our first.
Thanks a lot, mate.
Thank you ever so much.
Thanks a lot. No worries.
I think that's probably about it for this week, do we reckon?
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
I think we've covered everything. Right, if you want to get in touch, then you can get hold of us usual ways. Email 3legs4wheels@gmail.com. You can tweet us at 3legs4wheels. Lee, you are?
I'm at a total shunt.
And we've got the Facebook page as well, facebook.com/3legs4wheels. And don't forget the Patreon as well. Lots of free goodies for all our wonderful patrons.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we've had a load of new patrons as well lately, haven't we? So
We have, yes. Just want to 2 minutes thank individually, actually, which is great. So we can't thank you enough
Thank you,
for
everyone.
That is great.
Hope all the patrons are enjoying the extra podcast that you get.
And also, we say it every week, but come over and like the Facebook page.
Yes.
Get involved with the Facebook page.
yeah, we really do need more Facebook likes.
And massive thanks to Sean Kelly, Virtual Statman, for joining us this week as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thanks very much, Sean.
And good luck for the race on Sunday.
Yes, happy triathloning. Is that what you say, Dan?
Pretty much,
Oh,
yeah.
right, fair enough. Right, we'll see you next week for a preview of the last race of the season and the championship decider.
Dum dum dum.
Oh, it's big. Right, we'll see you next week.
Bye.